Chapter 962. The fact that Song Jianwang plotted against Dizong of Goguryeo was already a publicly acknowledged fact. In other words, he was Dizong of Goguryeo's enemy. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. King Yinluo suggested that Song Jianwang invite Dizong of Goguryeo out of the mountain. It was probably to deliberately make things difficult for him, to make him suffer in front of Dizong of Goguryeo and make a fool of himself. Moreover, the Nine Yu Hell was not an ordinary place. No one was willing to go there. This was not a good job to begin with. Naturally, he wanted to make Song Jianwang suffer. However, King Yinluo's words gave Song Jianwang no reason to refuse. Song Jianwang revealed a hesitant expression, as if he was very unwilling. King Yinluo sneered in his heart. "Who told you to go against me? Now you know how powerful I am. With just a few words, I can make you suffer. Even if you are resourceful, you are not as powerful as me." Seeing that the other kings of hell were looking at him, Song Jianwang hesitated for a long time before letting out a long sigh. He seemed to be extremely unwilling as he said, "All right, I'll go." King Yinluo's eyes flashed with a sinister light as he said, "Song Jianwang, from your tone, it seems that you are unwilling." "No." Song Jianwang seemed to be in pain as he said, "That's good. We're all colleagues, so it's only right for us to do what we can for each other. If we were to make all sorts of excuses, wouldn't we become a laughingstock?" King Yinluo took the opportunity to reprimand them. Song Jianwang's expression fluctuated. He did not refute and listened silently. King Yinluo teased a few more times before announcing the end of the meeting. Everyone was waiting for Song Jianwang's triumphant return. After Song Jianwang left King Yinluo's palace, a smile gradually appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, "King Yinluo, do you really think I hate this job? On the contrary, I purposely made a trip to the Nine Yu Hell." However, King Yinluo could no longer hear these words. Otherwise, he would definitely shout that he had fallen into Song Jianwang's trap again. In the vast wasteland, an afterimage quickly swept across the land. Tang Zheng had been searching in the ghost realm for a long time, but he still did not see a city. All of a sudden, a group of ghostly citizens appeared up ahead. They were clearly not ordinary ghostly citizens, as they were all emanating an extremely sinister aura. They were riding on tall horses with weapons strapped to their backs. Wherever they passed, black energy would surge into the heavens, and a flag would materialize in mid-air, upon which a sinister skull could be seen. It's not a good idea for me to walk around aimlessly like this. Why not go up and ask around? Even if it doesn't work, I can just grab a person and force them to tell me the specific situation. Tang Zheng thought silently and strode towards the team. There were more than 10 people in this group, and the tall horses attracted Tang Zheng's attention. They were all wearing armor, but he could clearly see that under the armor, there were only skeletons. However, they were still moving freely, no different from ordinary horses. Tang Zheng knew that everything in the ghost world couldn't be measured by the common sense of the human world. After a few more glances, he didn't make a fuss. When he got closer, the horses let out a neigh and stopped. Immediately, everyone's eyes were focused on him. A loud roar sounded, and without any verbal communication, the group immediately turned their horses around and charged towards Tang Zheng. "Damn!" Tang Zheng shouted. What was going on? Could it be that his disguise was exposed? No, he was very confident in his disguise. But why didn't this team distinguish between right and wrong? They didn't even say a single word before directly attacking them? This was too strange. Tang Zheng originally wanted to treat them with courtesy and say a few words, but now it seemed that it was impossible to convince them with reason. Then, he could only rely on his fists. He couldn't just sit and wait for death, so he didn't care about exposing his identity. The first to charge was filled with an extremely sinister aura, and its iron hooves clanged on the ground. Suddenly, the horse raised its front leg, and its iron hooves fell towards Tang Zheng's head. Tang Zheng lightly dodged to the side and dodged it. Bang, bang. The iron hooves fell on the ground, smashing 2 pits in the hard ground. Whoosh! A glinting ghost head blade slashed towards Tang Zheng's head. This time, Tang Zheng didn't dodge. Instead, he grabbed the back of the blade and pulled, causing the other party to fall off the horse and fall heavily to the ground. However, the other party didn't seem to notice. With a fierce roar, his body emitted a black light, and a ferocious ghost head popped out from the hilt of the ghost head blade. It opened its mouth and bit towards the back of Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He let go of the ghost head blade and grabbed the ghost head. The ghost head let out a shrill cry and tried to break free from Tang Zheng's hand, but found that it was futile. Bang! The ghost head exploded, turning into a cloud of energy that spread in all directions. Tang Zheng snatched the ghost head blade and slashed at the other party's head. With a poochie, the other party was split in half and turned into pitch-black energy. Tang Zheng frowned subconsciously. This team seemed a little strange. They were a little different from ordinary ghost messengers. It was as if the evil aura on their bodies was very strong. One could tell at a glance that they weren't good ghost messengers. Although one of their companions had died, the other party didn't panic. Instead, they attacked like a swarm of bees. More than a dozen ghost head blades slashed towards Tang Zheng's head, covering the sky and the sun. The gloomy energy made one's hair stand on end. Tang Zheng silently circulated his qi, urging the true qi to flow through his 8 extraordinary meridians. The gloomy feeling disappeared without a trace. Then, he lifted the ghost head and charged towards the other party. This was like a tiger charging into a pack of wolves. Although the wolves were fierce, they were still vulnerable in front of the tiger. After a few rounds, Tang Zheng had already killed several of them and completely gained the upper hand. However, these guys seemed to be unafraid of death and still charged forward without caring about anything. Tang Zheng didn't hold back. He only needed to leave one alive. Moreover, these guys were so unreasonable. Without saying a word, they directly attacked him. It seemed that they weren't good people. Killing them could be considered a good thing. After a while, Tang Zheng's opponent was left with only one who was still bitterly holding on. Tang Zheng's ghost head blade was chipped. It was obviously not a good thing. Clang! Another crisp sound. Tang Zheng's ghost head blade hit the other party's ghost head blade. Both blades broke into pieces. Tang Zheng's figure flashed and grabbed the other party's throat, making him unable to move. "Stop, or I'll make you suffer until you die," Tang Zheng said lightly. "Ayo, ayo." The other party cried out a few times. His eyes flashed with a dark light. He stared fiercely at Tang Zheng. "Who are you? I'll kill you." "Hee hee, this murderous aura hasn't disappeared yet. You're my hands now. You have to listen to me." Tang Zheng sneered. His hand tightened. "Ka-ka." A strange sound came from the other party's throat. His face immediately showed a hideous look of pain. Tang Zheng's face sank. "Obediently answer my question. Where's this place? Which king of hell's jurisdiction is it? How do I get to the nearest city?" Ga. The other party let out a sharp and strange laugh. "You don't even know where this is, and you dare to break in. This is the 9 Serenities Hell, the most dangerous place in the ghost world." 9 Serenities Hell? Tang Zheng's heart moved. The ghost that attacked the Tree of Life before also said that he came from the 9 Serenities. It was said that the 9 Serenities was the most mysterious place in the ghost world. He actually came here unknowingly. "You don't know about the 9 Serenities Hell? Who are you? Who am I? You're not qualified to know. Answer my question first. How do I get to the nearest city?" Tang Zheng impatiently asked. As for the 9 Serenities Hell, he didn't care at all. The other party didn't answer. Instead, he roared, "No matter who you are, only death awaits you in the 9 Serenities Hell." After saying that, a black light appeared all over his body. He turned into a black cloud of Shi and enveloped Tang Zheng. "Ah, you have a lot of tricks." Tang Zheng was slightly surprised, but didn't take it to heart. Although he was completely enveloped by the black Shi, he pointed his finger. A purple true fire jumped out from his finger. Wherever the true fire went, the Shi avoided it. Moreover, it let out shrill screams. True fire can not only be used to refine pills, but also to control enemies, especially against ghosts like you. Tang Zheng's finger pointed anxiously. Balls of flames erupted from his finger. In an instant, the Yin-Chi was wrapped in the true fire. It was like refining pills, and the Yin-Chi was like medicinal herbs. After a while, the Yin-Chi disappeared. Tang Jing shook his head and said regretfully, "The last captive is dead. Now there's no one to ask. Well, I'll continue to move forward. I'd like to see what kind of place the Nine Serenities Hell is." As the saying goes, those who don't know don't do it. He only knew a little about the Nine Serenities Hell. If he really knew the real horror of the Nine Serenities Hell, he would probably turn around and leave directly. Then, none of this would have happened. The endless wasteland stretched as far as the eye could see. He walked for a while. In the distance, he saw a bright light. The light meant that there were other people from the ghost world. The faint blue light illuminated the outline in the distance. It seemed to be a small village. There were a few low houses scattered around. Tang Jing had seen the prosperity of the big cities in the ghost world. When he saw this small village, he couldn't help but shake his head. It seemed that the gap between the rich and the poor existed everywhere. This Nine Serenities Hell was probably the slum of the ghost world. It must be very famous. In such a place, it was common sense for people to stay away from it. Tang Jing didn't take it to heart. He continued to disguise himself as a ghost citizen and swaggered into the village. The village was quiet. There wasn't a single ghost citizen. He shook his head secretly. This silence was a little strange. However, he was bold. He didn't take it to heart. He walked from the beginning of the village to the end, chasing after the light. Finally, he arrived in front of the light. The faint blue light was suspended in midair. As if it had a magical power, it firmly attracted Tang Jing's attention. When he got closer, the light suddenly moved and floated away. Tang Jing intuitively felt that there must be something wrong with the light. So, he quickly prepared to intercept it and investigate. However, the faster he went, the faster the light went. After chasing for a while, he found that he was still 1 meter away from the light. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reduce the distance. In addition, he found himself standing at the beginning of the village again. It was the place where he came in. Chapter 963. Tang Jing stopped, and the blue light also stopped, floating in the air in front of him. Looking around, there was no change at all. It was exactly the same as when he first entered the village. This was indeed the entrance of the village. He did not know why he returned to the original place. "Tang Jing, you encountered a ghost wall." Chiyu's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ghost wall? Yes, it's very common to encounter a ghost wall in the ghost realm. But this ghost wall is different from the usual ghost wall. The one here is even more strange. This is a dead end, but there is also a way to break the situation, and that is the light. You can only catch that light, and maybe you can get out of here. Chiyu said. In addition, there's one thing we forgot to remind you. The Nine Nether Hell is the most mysterious and dangerous place in the ghost realm. We are not members of the ghost realm, so we only know a little about its dangers. Let me remind you, when you encounter danger, don't blame us for not reminding you. The inner demon's voice also sounded. Tang Jing frowned. Although the two of them said it was serious, their words were not necessarily trustworthy. Tang Jing chose to ignore them, but the vigilance in his heart increased a little. Anyway, this trip to the ghost realm was not a good one, and it was normal to have danger. Since the ghost came from the Nine Nether Hell and was so powerful, would there be any discovery in the Nine Nether Hell? So after thinking for a while, he decided to stay. Is there any way to catch this light? Tang Jing asked. After a moment of silence, Chiyu said, the things in the ghost realm are extraordinary and can't be judged by common sense. As for the specific method, I can't think of it at the moment. Have you never been to the ghost realm before? Tang Jing asked speechlessly. Why would I come to the ghost realm? Moreover, at that time, the ghost realm was just a small world. What was the point of coming here? Chiyu asked. Tang Jing rolled his eyes helplessly. Okay, you win. He calmed down and did not continue to move forward, but stared at the light. Suddenly, his mind moved, and the war spirit sword flashed out, cutting across the sky. Puff! Without any fancy moves, the war soul sword struck the light, causing it to explode, turning into specks of blue light, as if they were stars in the sky. However, These rays of light quickly gathered together and returned to normal. Huh? Tang Zheng was surprised. This light was actually not afraid of the War Soul Sword's attack. What should he do now? Tang Zheng thought hard, his gaze gradually moving to the side. With a thought, the War Soul Sword attacked once again, and wherever it passed, those were like tofu. All of them were cut into pieces and finally turned into ruins, collapsing with a loud bang. There wasn't a single ghostly inhabitant in these houses, and they appeared even more lifeless after being reduced to rubble. With a tap of his foot, he immediately rushed into the ruins and swept across, leaving the ruins far behind him. He ran madly, but a moment later, he found himself standing at the entrance of the village again. Everything was as good as before, and even the details of the houses were unchanged. He had no choice but to stop because he knew that his attempt to break out had failed. This ghostly labyrinth was like a vicious circle. No matter how he tried to break out, he would always return to the starting point. He stomped his foot hatefully, and a large pit appeared under his feet. In the end, he had no choice but to focus his gaze on the light. He was afraid that the crux of all this was here. When he broke out just now, this light had always been behind him. I don't believe that I can't catch you. Tang Zheng became serious. 4 symbols venerable. Lend me a hand. Boom! With a loud bang, the 4 symbols venerable appeared out of thin air. When his feet landed on the ground, the earth trembled a few times. Move! With a loud shout, the 4 symbols venerable moved together with him, pouncing towards the light at the same time. The light seemed to have a consciousness and knew that danger was approaching, so it hurriedly dodged to the side. Its speed was extremely fast, and it easily dodged Tang Zheng's hand. However, the 4 symbols venerable was already waiting for it on the other side. Seeing that the 4 symbols venerable was about to catch it, it actually stopped halfway, changed direction, and flew to the other side. This repeated again and again. Tang Zheng and the 4 symbols venerable chased after it, but they were still unable to catch the light. However, Tang Zheng was meticulous and clever, and gradually discovered the light's movement pattern. Suddenly, the light dodged the 4 symbols venerable's hand again and flew to the side. In a flash, Tang Zheng moved with lightning speed and actually arrived at the light's escape route first. He stretched out his hand and caught the light in his hand. He was about to laugh happily when suddenly his brows furrowed and he screamed in pain. The light flashed and actually disappeared into Tang Zheng's palm. At the same time, an extremely cold aura spread from his palm to his entire body. In an instant, his body was frozen stiff, and a layer of ice slowly condensed on the surface of his body. He watched helplessly as he turned into a large block of ice, unable to move. Through the snow-white layer of ice, he could still see everything in front of him become illusory. That gloomy and cold aura made his true chi feel as if it was about to be frozen. Moreover, it followed along his meridians and arrived at his Zifu. His nascent soul emitted a purple light, and that gloomy and cold aura actually directly rushed towards his nascent soul. Yuanying's entire body blossomed with a boundless light, and this aura was kept at bay. However, the cold aura was like a poisonous snake and did not stop there. Instead, it looked around as if Yuanying was attempting delicacy. Although Tang Zheng could not move, his consciousness was still very clear. He desperately urged his inner chi, but he discovered that he was powerless, and his inner chi seemed to have been frozen. How could this be? Why is this ball of light so evil? He was extremely anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Chi-Yu, inner demons, quickly think of a way. Don't tell me you want to just watch as you die. Tang Zheng was quick-witted and hurriedly asked these two for help. If I had a way, why would I take so long to tell you? Chi-Yu faintly said. The inner demon sighed and said, I have always thought that I was invincible, but today I understand that everything in this world was too simple. There are still many things in this world that I am not capable of. The ghost realm was another world, and its mysteries were far more complicated than they had imagined. For a time, these two ancient powerhouses had a headache. In fact, this could also be understood. Everything was evolving and developing. At that time, although the two of them were supreme powerhouses, everything was changing. The ghost realm changed from a small world to a large world, and the mysteries that evolved over the years were far from what they could completely understand. Hearing this, Tangjing secretly rolled his eyes. These two guys usually boasted about how powerful they were, but when it came to this, they actually did not have a single useful method. This really angered him to death. If I die, you two won't be able to get any benefits, Tang Zheng said without any good feelings. Of course we don't want you to die. This would not benefit us at all. Qi Yu and the inner demons quickly said, but we really don't have a way. You are so smart, think about it again. Now you know how to say that I am smart. Tang Zheng angrily muttered, I can only rely on myself. Others are unreliable. In an instant, his body was completely stiff, no different from an ice sculpture. What made him even more terrified was that this cold aura was gradually freezing the Yuanying. The purple light emitted by the Yuanying had weakened a lot. Moreover, there was no way for the true qi to be produced from the Yuanying. Even if he had the divine power to protect his body, there was nothing he could do. When the Yuanying was finally frozen, Tang Jing's consciousness was still clear. He felt extremely desolate. He had spent so much effort chasing and intercepting this light, but after catching it, he actually ended up in this situation. He did not know how much time had passed, but he was on the verge of despair. This kind of torment was definitely not something an ordinary person could endure, because although one's consciousness was clear, they could not move. This was worse than death. The mountain was at the end of the river, but there was always a village at the end of the tunnel. When he was on the verge of despair, a warm feeling slowly emerged from his body. This warm feeling was born from his 9th major meridian. Moreover, it was like a spark starting a prairie fire, spreading through his 8 extraordinary meridians. Unexpectedly, his body gradually became warmer. Moreover, this warm feeling directly reached his Zifu, trying to rescue the Yuanying. Suddenly, that cold aura appeared again, intertwining with a warm feeling, both trying to destroy the other. After experiencing an extremely difficult battle, the cold aura was actually destroyed by the warm feeling. Yuanying thawed, and just like the repetition of all things, the true qi flowed, the warm feeling merged into each of his pores, and the warm feeling turned into heat. Not long after, he felt as if he was in a furnace. Every cell in his body seemed to be burning, and a scorching hot feeling filled every inch of his body. He let out a scream, but he suddenly realized that he could actually make a sound. So naturally, he could move. Sure enough, he could move freely. He did not have time to be surprised because the heat was getting stronger and stronger, as if it was going to melt him. In such a short period of time, one cold and one hot, the two worlds of ice and fire, he was suffering. Oh no, that warm feeling seems to be the most hidden pure yang energy in my body. After my pure yang energy was neutralized by the pure yin energy, the root has been suppressed by me. But just now, that cold aura seemed to have touched the pure yang energy, so it rose up and fought back. Although he guessed this point, he found that the situation was not much better than before, because once the pure yang energy broke out, he would face the danger of exploding and dying. This was the ghost realm. Where could he find someone to balance the yin and yang energy to suppress the pure yang energy? His cheeks were red, his body emitted green smoke, and his head felt like it was going to explode. But before he could think of a solution, he found that the situation around him had completely changed. Those villages disappeared, and the surroundings became bright as fire. Chapter 964. There was a huge pit in front of him. It was almost impossible to see the end of it. He stood at the edge of the pit as the cold wind howled. As for the village, there was no trace of it. However, he didn't have time to carefully observe all of this because his body seemed to be boiling. Although the pure yang energy had eliminated the cold aura, the after effects were not small. There were no other women here, only him. He had no way to absorb the pure yin energy to reach the realm of yin and yang harmony. This was really a torment. The pure yang energy has exploded. Qiyu, do you have a way to solve this urgent problem? Tang Zheng asked. I still need to think about this. TSK, Qiyu, stop pretending. What can you do? The inner demon scoffed. Qiyu ignored them. After a while, he cried out in surprise, I have a way. It's a secret technique of the Ninely tribe, but I can only use it. What do you mean? Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. In other words, I have to temporarily control your body before I can use this secret technique to temporarily suppress the pure yang energy in your body. Tang Zheng's head thumped. This was not a small matter. If Qiyu controlled his body, would he still have a chance to regain the initiative? What if he was completely replaced by Qiyu from then on? Tang Zheng had always been on guard against these two ancient experts. After hearing this decision, the first thing he thought of was this, so he didn't rush to answer. Seeing that he didn't answer for a long time, Qiyu quickly said, Tang Zheng, your current situation is very dangerous. This is the only way to survive. Young man, don't listen to him. This person is too cunning. His words can't be trusted. You have to think carefully. If he controls your body, will he take the initiative to return the initiative? At that time, you will no longer exist, and the owner of this body will be him. Tang Zheng didn't make a decision. The inner demons impatiently persuaded him. He really couldn't help but worry. After all, he had to guard against people. Moreover, he knew how cunning Qiyu was. If he let him succeed, then he would have no chance to turn the tables. Inner demons, what time is it now? You still want to cause trouble? If Tang Zheng loses the best opportunity and finally explodes, then both of us will die. Qiyu angrily said. The inner demons coldly smiled and said, if it's really so unlucky, then I'll accept it. I will live and die with the young man. I have no regrets. But if I let you take the initiative, then I won't even have a place to cry. Qiyu gnashed his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. He could only continue to persuade. Tang Zheng, don't listen to the inner demon's nonsense. He's deliberately causing trouble. If we lose the best opportunity, then it'll be too late for regrets. Although Tang Zheng's body was uncomfortable, as if it was about to explode, he still decided not to risk letting Qiyu control his body. He asked, can't you just tell me the secret method? I can use it according to the method. Only I can do it. You can't use this spell. Qiyu explained. Tang Zheng coldly snorted. If that's the case, then forgive me for not being able to comply. I've dealt with pure yang energy for so long. I don't believe that I'll really explode and die this time. He thought for a long time and decided to fight. Besides, he also wanted to test the limits of pure yang energy. In the past, whenever there was a crisis of pure yang energy erupting, he would immediately find a way to absorb pure yin energy. This time, he couldn't absorb it, so he wanted to see how long he could resist. Because he might face this kind of danger in the future, it might be beneficial to test it in advance. Besides, Qiyu's words were not very trustworthy. What kind of spell could only be used by him and no one else? Moreover, it was so mysterious that he really couldn't trust it 100%. At worst, when he really couldn't hold on, then he would use Qiyu's method. At least he could hold on for the time being. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't listen to his advice, Qiyu was flustered and exasperated. Tang Zheng, you're delaying yourself, do you know that? Good intentions are treated as ill intent. You don't have to worry about that. Tang Zheng resisted the discomfort and said lightly, haha, young man, good job. That's what a man should do. Besides, Qiyu isn't a good person. The inner demons were excited. Whether Qiyu had the intention to replace him or not, the inner demons were unwilling to take this unknown risk. Qiyu sighed for a long time, powerless, and sighed. If that's the case, then it's up to you. However, you've already broken the ghost labyrinth. It seems that the light is the key. Once you defeat it, all the illusions will naturally end. Tang Zheng nodded and said, yes, everything was so real, I really didn't think it was an illusion. No wonder it could trap me so strangely. Qiyu paused and muttered, I just don't know who in the ghost realm set up this ghost labyrinth. It's really strange. Qiyu sighed. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, no matter who set up this ghost labyrinth, this person must be a very powerful person. I have a premonition that things are far more complicated than we thought. This means that the Nine Serenities hell is more complicated than I thought. What? Are you preparing to leave? Tang Jing's expression was mysterious, and he said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Why would I leave? Since it's so mysterious, then I have to find out more." The inner demons praised. "A man should be a bit braver. Chi, do you think everyone is as cowardly as you? A coward? I'm cowardly?" Chiyu's voice suddenly rose a few notches, and he said angrily, "If I, Chiyu, am a coward, then there are no brave people in this world." Tang Zheng didn't pay attention to the two's battle of words. He put away the four symbols venerables and glanced into the pit. The pit was shrouded in a layer of black fog, and he couldn't see the situation inside. Snap! With a snap of his fingers, a ball of purple true fire emerged from his fingertips. The purple light didn't shine too far, and only faintly illuminated the area around him. However, he didn't hesitate and still took a step forward, walking into the large pit. There was a spiral staircase in the large pit, and he walked down it very slowly. After all, he was worried about missing a step and falling down. That would be terrible. There was black fog all around him, and it was as thick as water vapor, shrouding his body. The black fog was formed by a large amount of yin qi, and it was incomparably dark. Tang Zheng relied on the light of the true fire to move forward step by step, gradually passing through the black fog. Suddenly, there seemed to be a faint light coming from below. He felt a chill in his heart. Now, he had a subconscious vigilance towards light, and it was completely because of the light just now that he was scared out of his wits. Don't worry, even if it's a ghost wall again, you have experience, and you can still easily get out of it. The inner demons comforted. Tang Zheng secretly nodded, and what they said made sense. He walked down the stairs, and the light became brighter and brighter. There was actually another world under this black fog. However, he could clearly feel that the yin qi below seemed to be different, and there was a lot more ferocious in it. No wonder the Nine Serenities hell is called a fierce place. This kind of ferocious yin qi invading the body is probably not a small matter for the residents of the world of spirits and souls. It will definitely have a serious impact on them. However, although the yin qi was ferocious, Tang Zheng's body was surging with pure yang energy, and the yin qi couldn't hurt him at all. However, because of this, his disguise was completely gone. There was no yin qi on his body at all, and he was full of the breath of a living person. Suddenly, a mournful scream came from the bottom of the pit. The scream was so mournful that it made people feel as if they were in the same situation. Tang Zheng was the first to be alert, and he was 120% alert. However, he was now multitasking. While he was trying to suppress the pure yang energy, he was secretly observing the situation below. This big pit was funnel-shaped, and the lower he went, the smaller it became. Moreover, there were many big holes in the stone wall, and light came out from many of the holes. It seemed that the mournful scream also came from the holes. What's in there? He couldn't help but be curious. Let's go and see. The inner demons were also very curious. That's what I was thinking. Tang Zheng moved forward cautiously and finally came to a stone cave. He looked up, and everything in the stone cave entered his eyes. He opened his mouth wide, and a scream almost jumped out from his throat, because the scene inside was something he had never imagined. A black pot with a diameter of dozens of meters was placed in the middle of the stone cave. Gurgling bubbles were churning in the pot, and hot steam came out of the pot and rose straight up. There were barbs hanging on the top of the stone cave, and each hook had a ghost hanging on it. The ghosts were trembling and struggling, but it was useless. There were also many ferocious guys standing around the big pot. These guys obviously had cultivation, but their strength was not high. They were only ghost messengers and ghost generals. In the eyes of Tang Zheng, they were not worth mentioning. They let out ferocious laughter, and with a command, the barbs slowly fell down. Plop! A few ghosts fell into the black cauldron at once. The ghosts immediately began to struggle, like fish in water, splashing up waves after waves. But these waves were not water, but boiling oil. Boiling oil. This word immediately came to Tang Zheng's mind. This was a kind of legend in the human world. It was said that in the ghost world, there was a kind of torture called boiling oil. He had not seen it before, so he subconsciously thought that it was a lie. But now that he saw it, he finally understood that he was wrong. This was real, and they were actually putting ghosts into boiling oil to fry. Looking at the ghosts wrapped in boiling oil, after a while, those ghosts became even more ferocious and ugly. Many of their faces became pockmarked, and even half of their faces were gone. Even someone as bold as Tang Zheng felt his heart tremble as he watched. It was hard for him to imagine what kind of pain it was. On the other hand, those ghost messengers were gloating, dancing and dancing as if this was a great joy. A chill went straight to his heart, causing him to immediately frown. He was about to turn around, unwilling to see such a horrible scene. Chapter 965. The scream immediately attracted the attention of the others. All of the ghost messengers turned their heads and locked onto the uninvited guest, Tang Zheng. A living person, Tang Zheng's life aura was too strong. The other party could tell at a glance and cried out in alarm. However, they were not afraid. Instead, their eyes lit up as they rushed towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng knew that he could not avoid them. So with a slash of the battle soul in his hand, the ghost messengers of the front were directly split into two, but the other ghost messengers still rushed over without fear, exactly the same as what Tang Zheng encountered before. Strange, the ghost messengers of this hell don't seem to be afraid of death. He didn't hold back in the slightest. After all, he had clearly seen their vicious methods just now. He didn't want to roll in that pot of oil. Puff, puff, puff. Sword after sword, like cutting radishes. In a short while, the only one left was the ghost general with the highest cultivation. This guy held a ghost head blade and once again launched a charge without any regard for his life. Die! Tang Zheng roared. The battle soul chopped off his two arms, but he actually opened his mouth and bit towards Tang Zheng's neck. Tang Zheng speechlessly rolled his eyes. Was this guy a dog? Without his hands, he actually used this method. But how could he hurt him? His large hand grabbed the ghost general. No matter how the other party struggled, it was futile. He could not escape from Tang Zheng's hands. Tell me, who is in charge here? He had no clue and did not want to tangle with these small fries, so he prepared to find the leader here. To catch bandits, catch the leader, it could avoid a lot of unnecessary time. The ghost general roared and angrily said, "The Nine Netherworld is a land without a master. It is not responsible to anyone." Tang Zheng frowned and said, "Don't tell me you are in charge of your own formation?" The ghost general did not answer, but fiercely stared at Tang Zheng and said, "You are a living person. How did you survive in the ghost realm? You don't have to worry about that. I've never seen a living person in the ghost realm. You will be very popular. Ha ha." The ghost general's eyes burst out with light as he strangely laughed. Tang Zheng was taken aback and asked, "What do you mean?" "Ha ha, the taste of a living person. We have never tasted it before. It must be very delicious." After saying that, the ghost general licked his lips. It was as though Tang Zheng was a delicacy. Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. Did these ghosts want to eat humans? We've long been sick of the taste of ghosts, so a change of taste is definitely a happy thing. The ghost general happily said, "Holy sh*T. You're a freak. You're a ghost cultivator, yet you're eating ghosts? You're eating your own kind, you know?" Tang Zheng could not help but curse. "You can increase your strength by eating ghosts, don't you know? Haha, this is such a wonderful thing. You're a living person, so you don't know." The ghost general was not ashamed, but was instead proud. Tang Zheng shuddered. These guys in the Nine Secluded Hell were full of strange smell. They were completely different from other places and could not be judged with common sense. You want to eat me? You don't have the strength." "Yes, I don't have the strength, but do you know how many ghosts there are here?" "How many?" "I don't know, because there are too many. This is the Nine Secluded Hell's 18 layers of hell, the most sinister and terrifying place in the ghost realm. You actually broke through the ghost wall laid down by the Dizong of Goguryeo. Your strength is not bad, but you're still seeking death. The ghost general eerily laughed. That ghost wall was laid down by the Dizong of Goguryeo? Who is the Dizong of Goguryeo? Why did he lay down the ghost wall? When Tang Zheng heard this new name, he was very interested. He asked Qi Yu and the inner demons in his heart, but they had never heard of it. Therefore, Tang Zheng was even more interested. The Dizong of Goguryeo is a loathsome guy. None of us in the 9 secluded hell like him. As for the ghost wall, that's his conspiracy. In order to prevent us from going to the outside world, and to prevent the outside world from entering the 18 layers of hell, he wants to cut off the source of our 18 layers of hell. The ghost general's eyes showed anger and disgust. Tang Zheng's head moved. If this guy was so loathsome, then it could prove that the Dizong of Goguryeo was good. After all, most of the people who were loathed by bad people were good people. However, this Dizong of Goguryeo could lay down such a powerful ghost wall, indicating that his strength was certainly not ordinary. In addition, this ghost wall was equivalent to a barrier, preventing the 18 layers of hell from contacting the outside world, preventing these ruthless ghosts from going to the outside world to make trouble. Then why did I encounter guys similar to you outside? Humph! When the Dizong of Goguryeo laid down the ghost wall, it did not include 100% of the ghosts of the 9 secluded hell. The most important thing was the ghosts of the 18 layers of hell, so it's not surprising that there are other ghosts outside. The ghost general stared at Tang Zheng like he was looking at an idiot, as if to say, such a simple question, you don't even know? Really shameful. Tang Zheng did not care. At least this answer answered a lot of his questions. His mind moved, and he continued to ask, don't you boast that you're very powerful? Since you all hate him, why don't you deal with him? The ghost general's eyes burst out with resentment, and he fiercely said, who doesn't want to deal with him? But his strength is really too strong, and no one is his opponent, so he can do whatever he wants in the 9 secluded hell. Tang Zheng was shocked. In the 18 layers of hell, there were certainly other powerful ghosts, but they were unexpectedly unable to do anything to the Dizong of Goguryeo. In the end, how strong was his strength, Tang Zheng could not imagine. You said he's doing whatever he wants. Then what is he doing? The ghost general's voice came to an abrupt stop, and he stared straight at Tang Zheng, and suddenly said, are you trying to trick me? Stop dreaming. Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes. This guy actually reacted. It seems that it is impossible to trick him. You trespassed into the 18 layers of hell. You will undoubtedly die. Not only will your body be eaten, even your soul will be divided up by us. Listening to his sinister laughter, Tang Zheng helplessly said, since you are not willing to speak, then I can't let you stay. Boom! A flame soared into the sky, and the ghost general was immediately wrapped in the true fire, and in the blink of an eye he disappeared. Tang Zheng looked at the big pot of oil, and then turned around and walked out of the cave. Walking down the stairs, another scream came from the cave, and with the help of the light, Tang Zheng vaguely saw a ghost messenger pulling out a ghost's tongue. The tongue was pulled out from the throat, and the ghost burst out with a mournful scream. Tang Zheng could not bear to see this soul-stirring scene, and took a detour. This was the 18 layers of hell, and he would not be merciful enough to save these ghosts. Now, he had a target, and that was the Dizong of Goguryeo. Finding him may lead to an unexpected discovery. The enemy of an enemy is a friend, and at least the Dizong of Goguryeo was the enemy of these ghost messengers, so he wanted to meet the Dizong of Goguryeo. The more he walked down, the more gloomy and terrifying Tang Zheng felt. Although his pure yang energy had already erupted and his entire body felt like it was on fire, there was still a cold feeling enveloping him. He tasted the feeling of ice and fire, cold on the outside and hot on the inside. It was truly torturous. He walked down another step, and suddenly a group of ghost messengers came from the side of the corridor, and the two sides immediately met face to face. Along the way, he had been very careful, but now he was still discovered, and immediately, it was like a drop of water falling into a pot of oil, directly boiling. A living person. A sharp cry of surprise rang out, and then, as if they had seen a supreme delicacy, the group of ghost messengers shouted, Catch him. So. One by one, the ghost messengers charged forward without any regard for their lives. Tang Zheng helplessly shook his head, and now that he had not found the Dizong of Goguryeo and instead met this group of people, it seemed that a fierce battle was inevitable. Moreover, this was outside and would definitely attract other people. Therefore, he did not hold back and directly went all out. The war soul sword drew a line in the air and fiercely slashed down, and a dozen or so ghost messengers were cut in half by the sword light that fell from the sky, screaming miserably as they fell outside. Tang Zheng's clean and efficient attack did not intimidate the other party and made them feel afraid. Instead, it made them feel as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and they cheered, "What a powerful living person! After eating, my strength will definitely increase greatly." Tang Zheng felt a wave of disgust. This group of despicable fellows still want to eat him to increase their strength. Then I'll kill you all first. He took the initiative to attack, and the war soul sword shone brightly, instantly killing all the weaker ghost messengers, and the remaining guy was the strongest ghost marshal. The ghost marshal opened his palm, and a small flag slowly grew in his palm. He grabbed the flagpole and shook it fiercely. Whoosh whoosh. A cold wind blew, and Tang Zheng felt the surrounding yin-chi quickly gathering towards him, and his soul trembled as if it was about to leave him. Tang Zheng had the experience of fighting with Yama's seal and immediately realized that this flag was definitely a treasure that specialized in dealing with souls and could not be underestimated. I will first use the soul beckoning flag to collect your soul. With your cultivation being so strong, your soul and body must be very delicious. The ghost marshal laughed. Soul beckoning flag? Tang Zheng's heart moved. It was indeed the same as what he had guessed. Then he could not delay and had to cut the Gordian knot. Thus, he roared and leaped up, descending from the sky, fiercely slashing at the ghost marshal. The ghost marshal's entire body released a black light, and with a wave of his hand, the soul beckoning flag expanded in the wind and finally turned into a large flag. On the flag were complicated patterns that flickered with a strange light. The flag fluttered, and an invisible force spread out. Tang Zheng's soul trembled, as if it was about to leave his body. He was shocked and immediately focused his mind, operating his mysterious technique. He slashed down without any distractions. Bang! The war soul sword landed on the soul beckoning flag, and with a poochie sound, the soul beckoning flag broke. The ghost marshal anxiously rolled on the ground, dodging the war soul sword. Looking at the broken soul beckoning flag in his hand, he screamed, "Who exactly are you? Why are you so powerful?" Tang Zheng's cultivation surpassed his, so his soul beckoning flag did not cause any fatal damage to him, nor did it attract his soul out. Tang Zheng did not reply. He raised the war soul sword and was about to give his opponent a fatal blow. Suddenly, roar, roar, roar. Roars came from all directions, reverberating in the air, layer by layer, like a clap of thunder exploding in Tang Zheng's ears. His pupils constricted as he thought to himself, "Not good." Chapter 966. Amidst the roars, a group of shadows arrived in the blink of an eye and surrounded Tang Zheng so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through. Looking up, there were countless ghost messengers of various heights. Moreover, almost all of them were ghost generals and ghost marshals. Evidently, even ordinary ghost messengers couldn't squeeze in. Tang Zheng's expression didn't change. He suppressed the waves in his heart and calmly looked at them. A living person! They all cried out in surprise and stared at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. Some even subconsciously licked the corners of their mouths and seemed to be on the verge of drooling. None of these fellows in hell are normal. They all want to eat me. Am I that popular? Tang Zheng mumbled unhappily. Catch him! With a loud roar, everyone rushed over and surrounded him from the front and back. Tang Zheng stabbed rapidly with his sword. Pooh! Pu! Pu! The guy at the front immediately fell to the ground. They were all stabbed in the same place. From this, one could see how accurate Tang Zheng's attacks were. Small wounds were enough to end their lives. His skills are so strong. Everyone, let's work harder. This is an extremely beautiful delicacy. After eating him, our skills will definitely increase greatly. The team shouted excitedly. Tang Zheng smiled wryly, but his attacks were increasingly clean and ruthless. Pu. A few more heads flew up and died on the spot. Tang Zheng was caught in a chaotic battle. There were fierce attacks in front, left, and right. Which one was stronger? Reading on the phone, he was in dire straits and appeared to be in a somewhat sorry state. It wasn't that his skills were inferior to these guys, but that there were too many of them. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he couldn't handle them all. This won't do. This can't go on. Tang Zheng was anxious. With a single thought, the 4 symbols venerable appeared and swept his giant arms toward the enemies. Bang, bang, bang. Only the side of the pit near the wall had a staircase spiraling down. There was no foothold anywhere else, so those who were swept by the 4 symbols venerable fell down one after another. Moreover, the 4 symbols venerable was extraordinarily strong. Many of those who were swept by its arms died with their heads exploding. This flight of stairs was already very narrow to begin with, and with the presence of the 4 symbols venerable, it took up most of the space. It lifted its leg and stomped down viciously, trampling ghost generals into pieces. The appearance of the 4 symbols venerable attracted most of the attacks for Tang Zheng. It was incomparably ferocious, while Tang Zheng was ingenious. The two of them cooperated seamlessly. Stop them. Seeing this scene, the other party was also shocked because they never thought that this would happen. The other party was at least a ghost general, so after experiencing the initial panic, their explosive combat power was also very shocking. Several ghost generals and ghost marshals leaped into the air and charged towards Tang Zheng and the 4 symbols venerable. However, they were mostly targeting the 4 symbols reverent. Obviously, they were very clear that the battle prowess of the 4 symbols venerable was stronger. As long as they could deal with this colossus, then Tang Zheng would be a piece of cake. Wave after wave of powerful attacks landed on the 4 symbols venerable, causing sparks to fly everywhere. However, the 4 symbols venerable remained completely unscathed. Looking at this scene, their eyes instantly widened. What exactly was this big guy? Why was it invulnerable to swords and spears? Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the 4 symbols venerable held the fort, then the pressure on him would be greatly reduced. War Soul in his hand exploded with a resplendent light. Wind rises and clouds surge. Sword breaks 1,000 caddies. Lightning fire sword. Heaven falls and earth rends. Return to simplicity and transcendent flying immortal. Each of the incomparably fierce, transcendent flying immortal swordsmanship was displayed without restraint, causing the enemy to suffer a crushing defeat. I'll take you on. Suddenly, an angry roar rang out, and the enemies in front of him automatically parted, revealing a passage. A guy walked over with steady steps, taking large strides like a meteor. He was tall and burly, half a body taller than the other ghost marshals. At a glance, one could tell that he was not a good person. Moreover, he dragged a long chain in his hand, which made clanking sounds as it rubbed against the ground. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He could clearly feel that the other party's strength was higher than the ghost marshals. This was a ghost king that was even more powerful than the ghost marshals. Furthermore, he was a ghost king that often fought in the 18 levels of hell. Tang Zheng did not retreat. Instead, he looked at him with a burning gaze. He knew that he had met a strong opponent. Whoosh! The ghost king made the first move. With a flick of his wrist, the chain flew up from the ground and flew towards Tang Zheng. Clang! Tang Zheng anxiously raised his sword to block. Sparks blossomed in the air. Then, Tang Zheng tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew over horizontally. A sword came from the west, the heaven flying immortal. The War Soul sword exploded with an extremely large amount of energy, and the space in front of the Ghost King seemed to be split into 2. The Ghost King glared angrily and let out a low roar. The long chain seemed to have eyes as it turned in the air and flew towards Tang Zheng's back like a poisonous snake. Tang Zheng did not even turn his head as he swung his sword backwards. The sound of something not being hit rang out. Eh! His heart trembled. This attack had actually missed. He thought to himself that something was wrong. As expected, he immediately felt his entire body tighten. The long chain had actually trapped him. In that instant, he felt as if his soul had been bound. This long chain was most likely a soul magic treasure. He struggled fiercely, but to no avail. Boom! A ball of dark blue flames rose from the long chain and quickly spread. The entire long chain was surrounded by flames, and the flames quickly spread towards Tang Zheng's body. In an instant, he had turned into a flaming man. The strange thing was that the flames were not hot. Instead, it was cold to the bone, causing one's teeth to chatter uncontrollably. The pure yang energy in Tang Zheng's body was already restless, but after being stimulated by this cold and gloomy aura, it actually calmed down a little. Tang Zheng was shocked. Could it be that there was pure yin energy in this cold and gloomy aura? Most of the pure yin energy only existed in the human body, such as women. Although yin qi and pure yin energy were both yin, they were completely different. Therefore, Tang Zheng found that there was pure yin energy in this long chain. He could not help but be surprised. He did not have time to delve into it. His heartstrings suddenly trembled, and his soul seemed to be squeezed, shrinking inward little by little. However, his body was not squeezed. His gaze pierced through the strange flames and immediately locked onto the long chain. He thought to himself, this long chain is a soul-type magic treasure, but it's very different from the soul-summoning chest from before. It doesn't attack by extracting the opponent's soul. Instead, it directly crushes the soul within the opponent's body. This can also kill people. He could not help but be secretly speechless. The opponent's means were strange and unexpected. Clearly experiencing the pressure on his soul, Tang Zheng opened his throat and let out a cry of pain, but he could not break free from the long chain. Moreover, he did not want to break free from the long chain immediately, because he could absorb the pure yin energy from it to balance the pure yang energy in his body. Otherwise, if he could not find any other pure yin energy in this ghost realm, then he would eventually be in danger of exploding and dying. Therefore, he was playing a dangerous game, seeking a balance between the pure yin energy and the soul attack. If the soul attack reached a limit, he would certainly have to give up the pure yin energy and find a way to escape. Looking at Tang Zheng screaming, the Ghost King laughed proudly. In this 18 layers of hell, you still want to escape from my soul-binding chain? You're really wishful thinking. This soul-binding chain was refined by me using the souls of 999 female ghosts. It is specially used to bind souls. 999 female ghosts. Tang Zheng's heartstrings trembled. It was really a vicious magic treasure, and the opponent was really too insidious to use this method to refine a magic treasure. As for the pure yin energy on it, Tang Zheng could guess a thing or two. It was probably carried by these female ghosts. It was just that the pure yin energy of female ghosts was very rare, and there was so much pure yin energy accumulated because there was enough of them. Since I have absorbed this pure yin energy, then I should avenge those 999 female ghosts and kill this guy. Tang Zheng made up his mind. Boom! Seeing that Tang Zheng was trapped, the four symbols Venerable swept away the enemy in front of him with a move of total annihilation, then charged at Tang Zheng in an attempt to save him. Seeing this, the Ghost King waved his hand and said, "Stop it!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One by one, the Ghost Generals and Ghost Commanders charged at the four symbols Venerable without any regard for their lives. The four symbols Venerable had no choice but to stop and engage in a fierce battle with these guys. Venerable four symbols, don't worry. They can't hurt me for the time being. With a thought, Tang Zheng silently transmitted a message to the four symbols Venerable. The four symbols Venerable's artifact spirit had long since awakened, so he could communicate with Tang Zheng without any obstruction. Hearing his words, the four symbols Venerable's battle weakened a little, and he did not rush over in a hurry. Seeing this, the Ghost King thought that the four symbols venerable was not strong enough and had been successfully stopped. Immediately, he was overjoyed and said, "Let's see how you resist now. Come, let me eat you. It's your honor." He suddenly pulled on the long chain, and Tang Zheng was suddenly brought flying towards him. He opened his mouth wide, as if he really wanted to swallow Tang Zheng in a single bite. Looking at the large mouth that emitted a fishy smell, Tang Zheng felt disgusted. Seeing that he was about to be bitten by that large mouth, Tang Zheng did not tire of struggling. He had absorbed almost all of the pure yin energy in the soul binding chain, and the pure yang energy in his body was finally slightly pacified. Only then could he breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he was not frightened by Qi Yu and did not allow him to seize control of his body. This was because no one would have thought that he would encounter pure yin energy in the 18 layers of hell. This was truly a coincidence. He did not have time to sigh at the fickle nature of fate. Looking at the large mouth that was inches away from him, Tang Zheng turned his wrist and aimed it at the Ghost King. Although he could not move, he could still move parts of his body with some difficulty. When his palm was aimed at the Ghost King, Tang Zheng hurriedly activated the sky devouring technique. Whoosh whoosh, a black hole silently appeared in front of him. Everyone was shocked. A pitch-black hole appeared out of nowhere. Even if they were knowledgeable, they had never heard of such a thing. Soul-devouring, Tang Zheng roared, and the sky-devouring technique's powerful effects were displayed. Chapter 9:67. The Ghost King staggered back. With every step he took, a large hole appeared on the ground, and the cracks quickly spread with his footsteps. From this, it could be seen how flustered he was. Actually, the main reason was that this soul-devouring technique was too fatal to him. Although he tried his best to resist, he still felt like he was about to be sucked into the black hole. Seeing that he was still able to retreat, Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "You want to escape? You may not be underestimating me." He was like a shadow, although he was still bound by the soul-binding chain, but he lightly tapped his foot and quickly caught up and slapped the Ghost King's body. The Ghost King looked at the hand imprinted on his chest in disbelief, and his whole body trembled. A black light flashed before he could scream. He turned into a wisp of black smoke and was sucked into the black hole. This scene made the others turn pale with fright, and they subconsciously forgot to move. They never thought that there would be a technique that specifically targeted them. This was more powerful than the attacks of other magical weapons. After all, the main body was a ghost, although after cultivating, there would be a huge difference between them and other wandering ghosts, but their essence did not change. In fact, after the members of the ghost realm cultivated, they did not have the same physical body as humans, although they also had a physical body, but in the end, they were still ghosts. This soul-devouring technique specifically targeted souls. It was simply their nemesis. Tang Zheng had experienced it before, so he was not surprised. Seeing the Ghost King disappear, his body relaxed, and the soul-binding chain automatically loosened. Because the Ghost King was dead, this magical weapon became an ownerless object, and the attack naturally collapsed. The pure yang energy in Tang Zheng's body also calmed down a little, so he did not immediately explode and die. Therefore, he hurriedly kept the soul-binding chains into the summer world, and with a fierce glare, he stared at the other ghost generals and ghost commanders. Seeing the Ghost King mysteriously die in Tang Zheng's hands, these guys' heartstrings trembled, but they did not retreat. Looking at each other, their eyes emitted a blue light and shouted, "Eat him!" Immediately, this group of guys crazily rushed over. Tang Zheng secretly sighed, "Since you voluntarily came to die, then don't blame me." Boom, boom, boom. The ground shook under their footsteps, and the originally spiderweb-like cracks quickly spread. Kacha! The ground completely split open, and everyone screamed. One after another, they discovered that they were actually free-falling. The four symbols' Venerable's huge body also fell down. For Venerable, go in. Tang Zheng would not just watch as it disappeared into the darkness below. With a thought, He kept into the Sumru world, and his body also fell rapidly. Battle's soul sword, Imperial sword flight. So, War's soul sword. He finally was able to let out a breath, Tang Zheng. Ghost, 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 ghost to the ground, while flying to the ghost. And the ghost to the point, to the Zheng, to the ghost, to stop ghost. To the ghost, to the ghost, to ghost, 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 to the ghost, to die, ghost to them, to the ghost. They only cared about Tang Zheng, and all of them stared at him like a tiger eyeing its prey. Tang Zheng was outnumbered, but he did not lose in terms of aura. He extended his arm, and the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow appeared. Kill! The other party let out a deafening battle cry and swarmed over. Wong! The bowstring trembled, and the sun-shooting arrow left the bowstring, bringing with it a tidal wave of berserk aura that swept over. It was like a monstrous wave, and the wave fiercely slammed down. Boom! The one at the front was directly sent flying by this aura, crashing into the people behind him, causing him to be thrown off his horse. Puff, puff, puff. The sun-shooting arrow seemed to be tireless as it pierced through the bodies of 3 ghost commanders and 4 ghost generals, but did not stop. These fellows tried to grab the sun-shooting arrow with their hands, but they could only watch as the sun-shooting arrow pierced through their chests. All of a sudden, they lost control and fell into the dark abyss below one after another. Bang! The sun-shooting arrow struck the hard rock, causing it to fly into the air. Only then did it stop, leaving behind the arrow feather that was still trembling outside. This arrow had taken care of more than 10 enemies. In a spurt of energy, Tang Zheng pulled the bowstring again. Before the other party could react, the second and third sun-shooting arrow arrived one after another. The sky seemed to have changed color, and the chi in the crater was completely stirred up and shattered. Puff, puff, puff. A series of sounds could be heard. These Ghost Commander-S and Ghost Generals were not a match for the sun-shooting arrow at all. No matter how they dodged, as long as they were locked onto by the sun-shooting arrow, they would definitely die. After all, Tang Zheng's cultivation was already extremely high, and with the help of sacred artifacts like the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow, one could imagine how much fighting strength he could unleash. This series of attacks caused the other party to be stunned. The rest of them looked at Tang Zheng in a daze, not knowing how he could unleash such a powerful fighting strength. Tang Zheng took advantage of the moment when the other party was in a daze to retrieve the shooting sun arrows. Currently, he had 8 shooting sun arrows, and the 9th one was lost in the Yama Palace, so he was unwilling to leave this treasure behind. Seeing that the other party's fighting strength had been disintegrated, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He did not use the sun-shooting arrow again, but instead activated the sky swallowing technique. A huge black hole immediately appeared, and with a flash of his body, the black hole followed him like a shadow, immediately devouring all the ghosts that he passed by. The name of Soul Devourer was definitely well-deserved. Immediately, the few remaining enemies finally retreated. They had persisted for so long without hesitation, and finally knew how to retreat for the first time. If the other members of the Ghost Realm saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. After all, this kind of thing was not something an ordinary person could do. Tang Zheng flew towards the other party on his sword. With a whoosh, the other party immediately turned around and ran, rushing downwards. "Where do you think you're going?" Tang Zheng bellowed. These guys wanted to eat him. How could he let them go? He immediately chased after them on his sword. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One after the other, the two parties engaged in a chase, but Tang Zheng's speed was faster. Just as he was about to catch up, a fishy smell came from below. Tang Zheng was shocked and subconsciously stopped in his tracks. He found that the dark abyss had actually reached the bottom. Just now, he took a glance and found that from top to bottom, there were 17 levels. The bottom level was the 18th, the last level of the 18 levels of hell. Without a doubt, this last level was the most dangerous and terrifying. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless and looked down warily. The few ghost marshals rushed down and disappeared without a trace. Gurgle gurgle. A series of strange sounds rang out, and Tang Zheng's nerves suddenly tensed up. A ball of true fire appeared at the tip of his finger, illuminating the surroundings. Bean Chi here was very thick as seawater. The area illuminated by the flames was very limited, so Tang Zheng could only vaguely see the situation below. But just this little bit was enough to make his hair stand on end. Below them was a huge pool. The water in the pool was as black as ink, and the bubbling sounds were the bubbles rising from the pool. After the bubbles burst, they turned into a ghostly face. Furthermore, there were countless ghosts rolling around in the pool. Their expressions were ferocious, and they were terrifying to look at. What the hell is this? Tang Zheng felt a chill down his spine. His intuition told him that this place was even more terrifying. Although there was nothing to attack him, this was just the calm before the storm. As if to prove his words, the bubbles rose faster and faster, more and more. Soon, they filled the entire pool. Ferocious ghost faces gradually flew up, turning into a bloody mouth and biting down on Tang Zheng's head. The mouth could almost completely envelop Tang Zheng. He hurriedly raised the holy armor shield. With a crack, the bloody mouth bit down on the holy armor shield, producing an ear-piercing sound. The holy armor shield glowed, blocking the attack. Tang Zheng took the opportunity to use the sky swallowing technique. A black hole appeared, and a small part of the ghost face was immediately torn and sucked into the black hole. Roar. The ghost face immediately let out a series of angry roars. More and more bubbles appeared in the pool. Gurgle gurgle, as if the water was boiling. After the bubbles burst, the ghost face immediately repaired the damaged ghost face, and then bit down on Tang Zheng again. Tang Zheng was sure that the sky swallowing technique could deal with this ghost face, so he didn't use the holy armor shield to block it. Instead, he waved his hands forward, and a huge black hole appeared out of thin air, coincidentally facing the ghost face. The soul-devouring effect suddenly appeared, and a huge force tore apart half of the ghost face. This attack was even more ferocious than before, and the ghost face also suffered more serious injuries. It didn't have time to repair itself before it was enveloped by an even stronger suction force. The ghost face struggled fiercely, but found that it was useless. It couldn't escape from the black hole at all. You still want to run? Go in for me. Tang Zheng gave a loud roar and quickly activated his martial arts, causing a surge of suction force to fiercely pull Ghostface Mask into the black hole. Everything returned to normal, but the bubbles in the pool continued to churn as if they were brewing something. Tang Zheng's body tensed up. This ghost face was fierce, but it was far from being as powerful as he had imagined. This meant that there was definitely more danger waiting for him. Just as he was going all out and accumulating his power, he suddenly saw a figure in the darkness. There was a figure sitting in the shadows of the pool. He was bald, sitting cross-legged with his palms together, but his face couldn't be seen clearly. This made Tang Zheng shocked. The scene was completely out of place with the surroundings. What was going on? Who was he? Tang Zheng stared straight at him and found that he had a solemn appearance. Although he couldn't see his face clearly, he gave off a very calm and peaceful feeling, as if he could instantly calm people down. Moreover, his lips opened and closed, as if he was chanting something. Chapter 968. Tang Zheng looked at the other party in shock. If the scripture had such a huge magical power, it was enough to show how powerful the other party was. Could it be that he was the Dizong of Goguryeo that the other ghost messengers were so afraid of? Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide and carefully looked at the other party. Only then did he realize that the other party was very similar to the monks in the temples. He wore a kasaya, had a shaved head, and had a solemn appearance, just like an eminent monk. But compared to those so-called eminent monks in the world, there was no comparison at all. The difference was like the difference between an ant and a tree. What scripture is he reciting? I've never heard of it before. Tang Zheng frowned suspiciously. He used to be a top student and read a lot of books. He even dabbled in scriptures, But the scripture that was being recited by the Dizong of Goguryeo was something he had never heard of before. When a scripture came out of his mouth, a mysterious and unfathomable power accompanied it and surrounded his body. When the sinister ghost faces in the pool touched his body, they immediately became very peaceful, without a trace of malevolence. Then, the ghost faces flashed and disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked. His intuition told him that the scripture must have had an effect on the ghost faces, but he was still unable to determine the specific effect. He didn't know that it was the ghost faces that were being purified. Every ghost face was a ghost, and when they were purified, they left the 9 serenities hell. The Dizong of Goguryeo seemed to be tireless and kept reciting the scripture. The originally tumbling pool gradually calmed down. The ghost faces seemed to have met their nemesis and dived back into the pool, disappearing without a trace. All of this happened too fast, causing Tang Zheng to be at a loss for a moment. He could only stare blankly at the Dizong of Goguryeo. Suddenly, the Dizong of Goguryeo turned his head. Tang Zheng saw the Dizong of Goguryeo's bright eyes at a glance. What kind of eyes were those? Tang Zheng had never seen such eyes before. His heartstrings trembled as all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. There was not a trace of ruthlessness in those eyes, but they were not completely unperturbed either. Instead, they were filled with benevolence, as if they could melt a person's heart with just a glance. This is too amazing. For a long time, Tang Zheng was unwilling to shift his gaze away. In the other party's eyes, he could find a long-lost peace. It made his heart as still as water, and his mind wandered beyond the heavens. When the Dizong of Goguryeo saw Tang Zheng, he was not as surprised as the other ghosts when they saw him. Instead, he was calm and composed, and there was not even a trace of fluctuation in his eyes. This calmness made Tang Zheng's expression turn solemn. He cupped his hands slightly toward Dizong of Goguryeo and said, "May I ask if your excellency is Dizong of Goguryeo?" The Dizong of Goguryeo did not nod or shake his head. He only lightly said, "A name is just a code. I have been waiting for you here for a long time." This answer was a disguised admission that he was the Dizong of Goguryeo. "What? You were waiting for me?" Tang Zheng was shocked. He had never seen the other party before, so why would he wait for him? He quickly collected his thoughts and said, "You and I have never met before. How did you know that I was the one you were waiting for?" "Because I saw you in a dream." "In a dream?" Tang Zheng grinned. This statement was too mysterious, and he did not dare to believe it completely. As if he knew what Tang Zheng was thinking, the Dizong of Goguryeo explained the 3,000 great dreams. "You can also comprehend the Tao in dreams, and you appeared in my dream. This is the will of the heavens for you and me to meet." Tang Zheng was confused. How is this related to the heavens again? He was very clear that the heavens was a great Tao that operated in the universe. As for what the heavens were, no one could say for sure. This time, the Dizong of Goguryeo actually said that the heavens wanted them to meet. How could Tang Zheng remain calm? Why did the heavens want us to meet? Tang Zheng could not help but ask. "I am unable to completely guess the will of the heavens, but since you and I have met, there must be a reason." The Dizong of Goguryeo slowly said. His voice was very gentle, like the morning bell and evening drum. Hearing this, Tang Zheng's brows furrowed even tighter. "Why did you come to the 18 levels of hell?" the Dizong of Goguryeo asked. Tang Zheng could not figure out what the heavens wanted to do. After listening to his question, Tang Zheng had a thought and hesitated whether to tell the truth. But when he saw the other's eyes that were as clear as a mirror, the thought of deceiving flashed through his mind. In the end, he told the truth. "I came to explore the true purpose of the 10 kings of hell in the ghost realm." "Oh, about what purpose?" In fact, what he did was harming the ghost realm, but the Dizong of Goguryeo had an aura that made him trust, which made him subconsciously blurt out, "I want to know how the ghost realm is going to deal with the Tree of Life." "The Tree of Life has reappeared in the world?" The Dizong of Goguryeo raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. It was enough to make him so surprised, which showed the importance of the Tree of Life. Yes. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva closed his eyes and muttered to himself, "The cycle of the heavenly axiom. Could this be the will of the heavenly axiom? Everything that they did in the past is now returned to them." Tang Jing's heart moved. It seemed that the Dizong of Goguryu's words had a deeper meaning. "May I ask what happened in the past?" The Dizong of Goguryo did not answer, but opened his eyes, stared at Tang Jing, and asked, "Your human world is using the tree of life to absorb the original energy of the ghost realm, right?" "What?" Tang Jing was shocked. "How did you know? Did the 10 kings of hell tell you? This is the most terrifying place in the ghost realm. No one else would be willing to come here." The Dizong of Goguryo said, "Then how did you know about this?" "Because this is what you will definitely do. The human world was downgraded from a big world to a small world. You will definitely find ways to become a big world again. And the only way is to absorb the original energy of the ghost realm, plus the reappearance of the tree of life in the human world. Everything will happen naturally. So naturally, it is not difficult to guess the result." Although the Dizong of Goguryo's words were understated, but these words deeply shocked Tang Jing. This was a true master, able to infer the correct answer through clues. Immediately, he was on guard. Since the other party had guessed all of this, would the Dizong of Goguryo, as a member of the ghost realm, stop him? He was still delusional to find out the plan of the 10 kings of hell from him. It seemed like he was looking for fish from a tree. The Dizong of Goguryo's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He glanced at Tang Jing without leaving a trace and said, "You don't have to worry about what I will do to you. I have never killed a living creature in my life. Although you are a person of a human world, I will still not kill you." Tang Jing did not dare to relax. The members of the ghost realm were not ordinary people, and the Dizong of Goguryo was an existence that the other members were so afraid of. What if he was a very cunning person? Many things in this world were deceptive, although the other party did make Tang Jing relax. There was always a trace of vigilance in his heart. The Dizong of Goguryo also saw Tang Jing's vigilance, but he ignored it and continued to say, "Although I'm a member of the ghost realm, I do not agree with what they did in the past. Since it is the will of the heavenly axiom for us to meet, it means that I will not stop what you do." Tang Jing moved his head. Seeing that he mentioned the past again, he did not give up and asked, "What happened in the past?" "The ghost realm also absorbed the original energy of your human world, so it can be promoted to a big world." This time, the Dizong of Goguryo did not hide and told him the truth. Sure enough, Tang Jing had already guessed a little, and when he got confirmation, he nodded with a sullen face. "Since all of this was taken away by the ghost realm, then it is reasonable for me to take it back, right?" "Of course." The Dizong of Goguryo nodded. "This hurts the ghost realm. Will you turn a blind eye?" The Dizong of Goguryo pondered and said, "Since it is the will of the heavenly axiom, I will naturally follow the will." After a slight pause, he said, "However, the ghost realm and the human world are interdependent. If you use the tree of life to absorb too much of the original energy of the ghost realm, it is not a good thing." "Oh, why?" The Dizong of Goguryo looked at him and said, "It seems that you don't know the details. Maybe the heavenly axiom wants us to meet because of this consideration. If you keep absorbing the original energy of the ghost realm will eventually be destroyed. Then where will the souls of the people in the human world go after they die?" Huh. Tang Jing only wanted to promote the human world to a big world, but he never thought about this problem, so he was stumped for a moment. Seeing that he could not answer, the Dizong of Goguryo said, "The heavenly axiom wants to avoid the worst situation." "What situation?" "The ghost realm and the human world fought each other, and finally both died. Back then, the ghost realm absorbed the original energy of the human world, which destined the two worlds to fight. Yes, so now it is time to return it. But will the 10 kings of hell agree?" "No." The Dizong of Goguryo shook his head. Tang Jing smiled bitterly. He did not expect his answer to be so straightforward. Since they can't agree, then the fight between the two worlds will definitely escalate, and it will be in full swing. This is not something that a single person can control. If you haven't tried, How do you know it won't work? The Dizong of Goguryeo asked. You want to persuade the 10 kings of hell? Tang Zheng was shocked. The Dizong of Goguryeo was not in a hurry to answer, but fell into deep thought. Obviously, this was a very difficult thing for him to do. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to ask. This was not a small problem for the Dizong of Goguryeo, so he could wait. After a long time, Ksiddhartha Bodhisattva raised his head and said, I once swore that as long as hell was not empty, I would not become a Buddha. Now that hell is not empty, I have to leave. What do you mean? With regards to this oath, Tang Zheng was also confused. When he heard that he was going to leave, he was even more confused about his routine. The Dizong of Goguryeo looked at him and said, Before he could finish, the air in front of him fluctuated violently, and in a short while, it turned into a door, and a figure with a feather fan and a silk headband strode out of the door. The door quickly disappeared again. If it was not for the living person standing in front of him, he would have thought that it was an illusion. Tang Zheng felt a chill in his heart because he felt a familiar aura from the other party, the aura of the King of Hell. In the past, he had fought with the Chakravarti King and the King of Hell, so he was very familiar with this aura, and the one in front of him was probably one of the 10 kings of hell. The Yama seal was connected to the 18 levels of hell. When Song Jianwang cast a spell and entered the 18 levels of hell through the Yama seal, the first thing that came into sight was Tang Zheng. Chapter 969. After seeing Tang Zheng, Song Jianwang's eyes widened and he staggered backward. He thought that he had come to the wrong place. This was the 18th level of hell. How could there be a living person? Moreover, there shouldn't be living people in the world of spirits and souls. But when he turned his gaze and saw Dizong of Goguryeo, he was sure that he hadn't come to the wrong place. But immediately, he was even more confused. He stared straight at Tang Zheng and asked, Who are you? Hey, why do you look a little familiar? Tang Zheng's head moved. He had never seen him before. Why would he find him familiar? Before Tang Zheng could ask the question in his heart, Song Jianwang exclaimed again and stared at Tang Zheng incredulously. You are that person, the person who guards the tree of life. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. How'd he recognize me? At that time, he didn't appear in the human world. Could it be that vortex? His guess was right. Although the 10 kings of hell hadn't arrived in the human world, the vortex was equivalent to their eyes. They had seen the battle below clearly. Not only him, but even the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi were seen clearly by them. The last time Tang Zheng came to the world of spirits and souls, he used illusion to disguise himself. In the hearts of the King of Hell and the King of Chakravarti, he had already sunk into the river Styx and died long ago. So even if they saw Tang Zheng's true face from the vortex, they didn't recognize him. However, the 10 kings of hell remembered Tang Zheng's face. Song Jianwang didn't recognize him at once, mainly because he didn't expect him to be in the 9th level of hell. Now that he recognized him, he was really shocked and angry. This living person actually came to the world of spirits and souls, and even came to the 9th level of hell. Most importantly, he was safe and sound. This was beyond his common sense. Since he was recognized, Tang Zheng became extra careful and ready to attack. He asked cautiously, Which one of the 10 kings of hell are you? He is Song Jianwang. Dizong of Goguryeo suddenly spoke. Only then did Song Jianwang realize that Tang Zheng and Dizong of Goguryeo did not make a big fuss. This was beyond common sense. Therefore, he looked at both parties thoughtfully. Song Jianwang, I'll remember that. Tang Zheng nodded. He was not familiar with the 10 kings of hell at all, so he did not know how powerful Song Jianwang was. However, he did not dare to underestimate him. Last time, he had been chased by King Yinluo and the Chakravarti king to the point that he could only flee. If not for the protection of the 4 divine beasts, he would have long lost his life in the ghost world. From this, one could see how powerful the 10 kings of hell were. You got some guts. How dare you come to the world of spirits and souls? What is your ulterior motive? Song Jianwang scolded sternly, but he glanced at Dizong of Goguryeo from the corner of his eyes. Song Jianwang was wise and resourceful, but he was suspicious by nature. He did not trust anyone but himself. Therefore, when he saw that Tang Zheng and Dizong of Goguryeo were safe and sound, he became suspicious. Could it be that this person was in cahoots with Dizong of Goguryeo? Otherwise, how could he explain why he came to the world of spirits and souls and ended up in the 9th level of hell for no reason? If he did not have the guidance of an expert, how could he have done this? Moreover, there was the ghost labyrinth set up by Dizong of Goguryeo outside. It was not something that could be broken in by any ordinary person. All in all of this was strange and could not be explained by common sense. Song Jianwang was good at concocting conspiracies. Naturally, he thought that all of this was a conspiracy. He couldn't help but rejoice that he had come to the 9 Serenities hell. Otherwise, who knew what the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was plotting with this person? At that time, the 10 kings of hell would be caught unprepared. This Dizong of Goguryeo seemed to have been enlightened. He even knew to join forces with humans. Could it be that he had misjudged him? Song Jianwang's thoughts turned thousands of times, and his gaze wandered. Seeing him like this, Tang Zheng said fearlessly, "Why would I tell you my purpose for coming here? How dare you? In a world of spirits and souls, you still dare to be so arrogant. Could it be that you have something to rely on?" Song Jianwang said firmly. Tang Zheng raised the corner of his mouth and said, "What do I need to rely on? I don't need anything." "Is that so?" Song Jianwang was skeptical. In his heart, he had already determined that Tang Zheng was the Dizong of Goguryeo's accomplice. Naturally, he would not believe these words. He turned around and said to the Dizong of Goguryeo, "Dizong of Goguryeo, this person is from the human world. He is our enemy. What business does he have here?" Since he could not get anything out of Tang Zheng, he turned his attention to the Dizong of Goguryeo. The Dizong of Goguryeo raised his eyes and looked at Song Jianwang without sadness or joy. He said, "You know better than me why he is here." "What do I know? The cause that you sowed back then is the fruit that you bear today." "Cause and effect?" "Yes." Song Jianwang's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the Dizong of Goguryeo. The cause that he sowed back then. Could it be that he used the 9 underworld lightning to kill the tree of life and then took the opportunity to absorb the original energy of the human world? This action was actually instigated by him. Song Jianwang was too smart. From an ancient book, he discovered the difference between a large world and a small world. He also understood that the small world was in danger of being destroyed at any time. Therefore, he encouraged the 10 kings of hell to take the opportunity to destroy the tree of life. At that time, he was not one of the 10 kings of hell. It was because of this incident that his prestige rose and he became one of the 10 kings of hell. In fact, their action of using the 9 underworld lightning to kill the tree of life could be said to be huge. At that time, human cultivators were still in this world, but they knew very little about the tree of life. Basically, no one knew the use of the tree of life. They were careless and gave the ghost realm an opportunity. The 9 underworld lightning successfully killed the tree of life. The original energy of the human world collapsed, and the spiritual energy gradually became thin. The ghost realm took the opportunity to use the 9 underworld eye to absorb the original energy of the human world and quietly advance to a large world. However, the ghost realm did pay a price. The 9 underworld hell in front of them was the aftermath. In fact, the 9 underworld used to be a paradise in the ghost realm. It was a holy land for cultivation. Because of the existence of the 9 underworld the Yin energy here was rich and cultivation was twice the result with half the effort. It was a place that many members of the ghost realm flocked to. However, ever since they used the 9 underworld to absorb the original energy of the human world, the 9 underworld changed. The Yin energy was mixed with a lot of evil energy. Once it was absorbed into the body, it would lose itself and eventually become a machine that only knew how to kill. The 10 kings of hell were forced to stop the plan to absorb the original energy of the human world. In fact, according to their original plan, They wanted to use the 9 underworld eye to absorb the original energy of the human world completely. This way, the ghost realm could become stronger. However, things did not go according to their wishes. The 9 underworld had undergone earth-shaking changes. All the members of the ghost realm nearby had mutated. Among them, the most famous one was one of the 10 kings of hell. He also mutated and was forced to be sealed in the 9 underworld. As a result, there was a vacancy in the position of king of hell. Only then did Song Jianwang have the opportunity to fill the vacancy. Since then, the 9 underworld was crowned with the name of hell. It meant that the most terrifying place in the ghost realm had become the 9 underworld hell. As for the 9 underworld eye, it became the 18 layers of hell that they were currently in. At the mention of karma, scenes of the past flashed through Song Jianwang's mind. A ferocious glint flashed across his eyes as he said, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, the theory of karma is just your own words. Dizong of Goguryeo was not angry. He just shook his head gently. The truth is right in front of you. Do you still not believe it? I only trust the power in my hands. Song Jianwang's palm flicked open. The Yama seal in his hand began to spin, flickering with a dim light. Although he said so, he could not help but feel nervous. Originally, he wanted to ask the Dizong of Goguryeo to come out of seclusion. Once the Tree of Life was destroyed, he would think of ways to sow discord between the relationship between the Dizong of Goguryeo and the King of Hell. He did not believe that with his intelligence and wisdom, he would not be able to sow discord between the two sides. At that time, he would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits. The vast ghost realm would be in his pocket. His wishful thinking could not be said to be not good, but he did not expect that Tang Zheng would suddenly appear out of nowhere. He still could not figure out the relationship between Tang Zheng and the Dizong of Goguryeo. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he kept probing. He was ready to use a trick again. He wanted to tie down the Dizong of Goguryeo first. Then he would have a chance to make a move. Otherwise, he did not have the ability to make a move in front of the Dizong of Goguryeo. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This person is a public enemy of the ghost world. He should be punished. I'll bring him back for interrogation. I'll take my leave first. King Song Jiang probed hypocritically. Unexpectedly, the Dizong of Goguryeo did not give him face at all. He asked directly, He is with me. Can you take him away? This sentence seemed to be plain, but it was full of protection. Song Jianwang's heart trembled, and he said, Dizong of Goguryeo, you may not have heard my words clearly. He is the public enemy of the ghost realm. Not only me, but the other 9 kings of hell also want to punish him. This is not my idea alone. He used the names of the other kings of hell in an attempt to scare the Dizong of Goguryeo. After all, although the Dizong of Goguryeo was powerful, he still had to take into account the illustrious reputation of the 10 kings of hell. The Dizong of Goguryeo already had an idea in his heart. Moreover, there was that mysterious and unpredictable heavenly decree. Of course, he would not just watch as Tang Zheng was taken away. He said, the 10 kings of hell's reputation is so great. I don't care about worldly affairs, but that does not mean I will be bullied for everything. Back then, you tricked me into coming to the 9 serenities hell. I haven't settled this debt with you yet. Song Jianwang's expression turned ugly. He did not expect the Dizong of Goguryeo to have seen through his scheme back then. However, Song Jianwang was a veteran of hundreds of battles. He immediately regained his composure and said bitterly, Dizong of Goguryeo, everything that happened back then was the king of hell's idea. At that time, I had just become the king of hell and did not have any prestige at all. I could not compete with the other kings of hell, let alone go against the king of hell's decree. Therefore, the main culprit who trapped you here was the king of hell and not me. I tried to persuade him many times, but it was useless. The Dizong of Goguryeo looked at him with neither joy nor sorrow. This gaze made Song Jianwang's heart beat like a drum. However, he still held it in and did not look away. He pretended to be magnanimous as he looked at the Dizong of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng did not expect the Dizong of Goguryeo to be so righteous and protect him like this. However, when he saw that Song Jianwang did not put him in his eyes at all, the anger in his heart rose bit by bit. I'm not a soft persimmon that you can pinch as you please. Chapter 970. Tang Zheng took a step forward with his sword, blocking Song Jianwang's line of sight. Song Jianwang was startled and said, "What? You still dare to clamor with me?" Tang Zheng sneered. "Song Jianwang, do you really think that you can casually control me by looking down on me like this? Isn't that so?" Song Jianwang asked back, looking at Tang Zheng in ridicule. "Then you'll know once you try." Dizong of Goguryeo also seemed to want to know Tang Zheng's strength, and looked at Tang Zheng meaningfully, but did not interrupt. Seeing that Dizong of Goguryeo did not say a word, Song Jianwang's expression changed rapidly. It was thought-provoking, and thought to himself that the relationship between Dizong of Goguryeo and this living person seemed to be somewhat strange. Since Dizong of Goguryeo did not object, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted? "Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll fulfill your wish," Song Jianwang said with killing intent. His figure flashed and attacked Tang Zheng. Good timing. Tang Zheng gave a low roar. The heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow appeared in his hands. With a flash of the arrow, the shooting sun arrow flew towards Song Jianwang. Song Jianwang's face was filled with shock. This was because when the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow were displayed, he could tell that they were not ordinary. He immediately thought of a rumor that he had heard before. Back then, a human expert had appeared in Yama Palace and also used a bow and arrow. He had even left an arrow in Yama King's hands and kept it like a treasure. But later on, this person fell into the river Styx and died. Now, another archer had appeared, and he could also freely walk in the ghost realm. Could it be that there was a connection between the two of them? Before he could think about it carefully, the shooting sun arrow had already arrived in front of him. The yin qi in the 18 levels of hell was as viscous as the seawater, surging towards Song Jianwang like a tidal wave, enveloping him in an instant. Song Jianwang extended his hand, and the Yama seal descended from the sky, colliding with the shooting sun arrow. The surging yin qi directly rushed towards the pool below. Boom! The water vapor splashed the black water all over the sky, like an angry dragon flying towards both sides. Two rays of light blossomed on the two people's bodies. The black water fell on the light rays and made a sizzling sound, but it did not hurt the two people at all. Dizong of Goguryeo sat in the middle of the pool. The waves were turbulent, but they did not harm him in the slightest. Moreover, his eyes were filled with interest as he watched the battle between the two. The battle was extremely intense. Waves of energy flew everywhere, and the 18 layers of hell seemed to have changed completely. The heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows released a huge amount of power, and the Yama seal was not to be underestimated either. Tang Zheng was almost certain that this Yama seal was a divine weapon that was even more powerful than the King of Hell's seal of the Chakravarti King. It was on par with the King of Hell's seal. In addition, Song Jianwang's cultivation was at least at the semi-god realm. Therefore, even though Tang Zheng had the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows, he was still unable to defeat him. However, Dizong of Goguryeo's eyes became brighter and brighter, because Tang Zheng's fighting strength had already far exceeded his expectations. The heavenly Tao did not lie to him, and attracted such a strong human expert. Tang Zheng was not too surprised. After all, he had seen the power of the King of Hell, so he already had a preliminary estimate. Just as he was about to summon the four symbols venerable to deal with Song Jianwang, a monstrous black wave suddenly rose up and struck towards the two of them. The appearance of this black wave was extremely sudden and inexplicable, causing Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang to not be able to defend against it. As a result, the black wave directly drenched their heads. Sizzle immediately, a series of sounds like roasting meat rang out. Tang Zheng cried out in pain and actually felt a burning pain. Looking down, he discovered that the places where the black wave had touched had turned fiery red, and his skin was festering. This scene gave him a fright, and he immediately channeled his energy, trying to resist the black waves. However, the black wave was extremely ferocious and was actually not afraid of Tang Zheng's innate qi. Like a spark of fire, it instantly spread to more parts of Tang Zheng's skin. On the other side, Song Jianwang also jumped up. He did not care about Tang Zheng at all and quickly channeled his energy. A black light rose from his body, and the black waves gradually disappeared without a trace. It was obvious that his condition was much better than Tang Zheng's. What's going on? Tang Zheng looked at all of this in disbelief. Song Jianwang took a deep breath and sneered. Ha! The heavens are helping me. Do you think that the things in the 18 levels of hell are so simple? Not only is this black wave fatal to the members of the world of spirits and souls, but it is also absolutely lethal to you humans. Your skin will completely fester, and in the end, you will become a ghost. When that time comes, let's see how you can still be so arrogant. If Tang Zheng became a ghost and lost his physical body, his strength would definitely drop from the sky to the ground. When that time came, how could he be Song Jianwang's opponent? He did not expect that the stinky black wave would be so lethal, and his heart trembled. He did not think that Song Jianwang was lying to him. This was definitely true. Seeing his expression become so ugly, Song Jianwang was even more pleased and said jokingly, "Don't waste your energy. Your innate qi cannot resist the black wave. It is mixed with the most sinister yin qi in the world of spirits and souls, and its lethality is fatal." Tang Zheng coldly snorted, resisting the pain, and said, "I'm not scared. It's not that easy to take my life." Seeing that Song Jianwang could easily resist the black wave, he did not believe that he had no way at all. However, he did not know that this black wave was most effective against the real body of a person and was even more effective than against a ghost. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Tang Zheng's ears, and it was like the sound of nature. The irritation in his heart immediately disappeared, and the pain in his body suddenly stopped. As for the injuries on his body, they were miraculously healed. Seeing this scene, not only Tang Zheng, but even Song Jianwang was dumbfounded. This was because Song Jianwang had never seen the Dizong of Goguryu's magic. The Dizong of Goguryeo had been in the 9 levels of hell for hundreds of years, and no one had ever seen him. Naturally, they did not understand his situation. Today, seeing him, Song Jianwang found that the Dizong of Goguryeo was even more unfathomable. He could not guess how deep the cultivation of the Dizong of Goguryeo was. "What kind of magic is this?" Song Jianwang asked. The Dizong of Goguryeo raised his eyes and lightly glanced at him, saying, "The Ksiddhagarbha Sutra. I have been here for hundreds of years, and it is a set of scriptures that I have comprehended. How does it feel? How does it feel?" "This feeling is very shocking. Do you know?" Song Jianwang's heart was screaming. "The Ksiddhagarbha Sutra is very effective against the ghosts here. I believe that before long, I will be able to make the underworld empty, and the 9 levels of hell will no longer exist." The Dizong of Goguryeo said confidently. Song Jianwang had never seen the Dizong of Goguryeo boast before. Since he said so, then he must be very confident. The Ksiddhagarbha Sutra could speed up the Dizong of Goguryeo's conversion of the ghosts here. This set of scriptures was simply heaven-defying. From the fact that Ksiddhagarbha Bodhisattva was able to heal Tang Zheng's injuries with just a few simple lines of scripture, one could see how powerful he was. When Tang Zheng thought of the scriptures that the Dizong of Goguryeo spoke of before, he was deeply shocked. He could not help but admire the Dizong of Goguryeo. To be able to comprehend the great Tao and comprehend this kind of Ksiddhagarbha Sutra out of nothing, this was a true almighty ability. Although many people were powerful, they could only inherit and carry forward other people's cultivation methods. They could comprehend a new set of cultivation methods on their own. This was what made them powerful. The current Tang Zheng could not compare to them, but he was looking forward to it. If he could have such achievements one day, then his life would not have been in vain. The cultivation methods that he cultivated were very complicated. The ancient clear heaven scroll and the dragon god secret art were the foundation. The others, such as the 9 revolutions Vajra technique, the heaven swallowing technique, the heaven flying immortal sword art, and so on, were all learned from others. Therefore, he still had a very long way to go on the road of cultivation. Of course, not every cultivator or martial artist could have the opportunity and ability to create a first-rate cultivation method. But if they could do this, then they would be famous throughout the ages. Dizong of Goguryeo, then it seems that I have to congratulate you. Song Jianwang said insincerely. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression did not change. He was as motionless as a mountain, making Song Jianwang completely unable to guess his thoughts. Since the Dizong of Goguryeo had made his move, then should he fight or retreat? If he retreated, then his plan would be for naught. But if he continued to fight with the Dizong of Goguryeo, how could he have any chance of winning? Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound interrupted his thoughts. He saw a huge wave rise up in the pool. The pool water bubbled, and one after another, ghost faces appeared on the surface of the pool. What's going on? Song Jianwang shouted in shock. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression instantly became serious. Seeing his reaction, even Tang Zheng's head sank. After all, the Dizong of Goguryeo's expression did not change. He was neither sad nor happy. This change was definitely not a good thing. As expected, the Dizong of Goguryeo said in a deep voice, "You've been accumulating power for so many years. Are you finally going to come out?" Hearing this, Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang were both confused. Song Jianwang asked curiously, "Dizong of Goguryeo, just what is going on?" The seed that was planted back then is the fruit of today. This matter is also related to you. The Dizong of Goguryeo looked deeply at Song Jianwang and said meaningfully. Song Jianwang's brows furrowed. He still did not understand the meaning behind his words. He shouted angrily, "Don't be deliberately mystifying." The Dizong of Goguryeo did not answer him. Instead, he stared at the surface of the pool with a burning gaze. Boom, boom, boom. Loud sounds came from the bottom of the pool. It was like the sound of war drums that signaled the beginning of a war. It made people's hearts beat faster, and their blood seemed to be boiling. A burst of dense energy rose from the surface of the pool, and the air became more and more viscous, like glue. The Dizong of Goguryeo's expression became serious. He opened his mouth, and a passage of scriptures came out of his mouth. These scriptures turned into fist-sized, golden Sanskrit words and flew to the surface of the pool. When these Sanskrit words appeared, the power of the Ksitigarbha Sutra increased greatly. It was many times more powerful than what they had seen before. Once the Sanskrit words came close, those writhing ghost faces immediately disappeared and were converted. Chapter 971. Looking at the turbulent pool, Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang's hearts were in their throats. Suddenly, boom! With a loud sound, a monstrous black wave surged up. A huge creature rushed out of the pool. It was like a towering mountain, looking down at the three of them. This big guy was extremely ferocious and terrifying. Its huge head was a ferocious ghost face. Its 2 eyes were like blue flames that constantly jumped, and its big mouth was like a bottomless black hole, causing people to feel fear just by looking at it. "What is this?" Song Jianwang exclaimed. Dizong of Goguryeo said with a serious expression, "This is the cause you planted. Don't you recognize him?" Song Jianwang stared at the huge creature with suspicion. He frowned and said, "He is, the king of the underworld." If the other kings of hell heard the 3 words king of the underworld, they would definitely be shocked. This was because this name had disappeared for too long. No one mentioned it at all. However, they would not forget. This was because the king of the underworld was one of the 10 kings of hell who were as famous as them. He was the king of hell who was harmed by the Yin-Chi of the 9 underworlds. Because of his death, Song Jianwang was able to ascend the throne. Therefore, how could Song Jianwang not have a deep impression of him? Although the king of the underworld's appearance had changed greatly, one could still vaguely see the outline of the king of the underworld. Therefore, Song Jianwang recognized him after looking carefully for a while. Because of this, he was indescribably shocked. This was because everyone thought that the king of the underworld was already dead. When he suddenly appeared at this time, no matter who it was, they would be shocked. However, it was obvious that Dizong of Goguryeo knew that the king of the underworld was not dead. That was why he said that karma. Tang Zheng did not recognize the king of the underworld, but when he saw the other party's appearance, he knew that the other party was not to be underestimated. However, seeing Song Jianwang's reaction, he was very interested to know what kind of unusual relationship there was between the two of them. King of the underworld, so you're not dead, Song Jianwang said. The Netherworld King glared at Song Jianwang and finally said, Song Jiang, so it was you. It was because of your plan that I ended up like this. Song Jianwang's previous name was Song Jiang, and he was a subordinate of the Lord of the Underworld. He had planned for the Lord of the Underworld to become like this, so the Lord of the Underworld obviously did not have a good impression of him. The anger in his words was unmistakable. Song Jianwang's eyelids twitched as he said, Netherworld King, this is all a mistake. I never thought that you would become like this. If I had known, I definitely wouldn't have done this. Also, if I had known that you were still alive, I would have risked my life to come to the ninth hell to save you. The Lord of the Underworld laughed coldly. Ha! Who wants you to save me? My current condition is better than ever. Of course, if that bald donkey Dizong of Goguryeo wasn't around, I would be even better. He has suppressed me for so many years. Now that I have achieved great success, I can finally break through shackles. After saying this, the Lord of the Underworld turned to look at the Dizong of Goguryeo and laughed eerily. The Kittagarbha Bodhisattva remained unfazed by the compliment and humiliation. He did not react in the slightest because of these words. However, Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang were both shocked. It turned out that the Dizong of Goguryeo had been deliberately suppressing the Lord of the Underworld. As for why he would do this, Song Jianwang thought for a moment and understood the reason behind it. This was because the Lord of the Underworld's temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. He could not be controlled at all. If he was not suppressed and allowed to leave the ninth hell, the impact would be immeasurable. Since the Dizong of Goguryeo could not suppress the Lord of the Underworld, then how profound was his current cultivation? Moreover, he said that he had achieved great success in his divine technique. What kind of divine technique did he cultivate? Also, Song Jianwang, don't think that I don't know about your wild ambitions. When you were under my command, I always knew that you wanted to replace me. Now that I am dead, I'm afraid that the throne of the King of Hell has also fallen into your hands. The Lord of the Underworld exposed the mystery with a single sentence. Song Jianwang's expression changed slightly, but he could not stop complaining. Lord of the Underworld, you have really misunderstood me. I have always been loyal to you. How could I have such thoughts? Haha, then are you one of the kings of hell now? The Lord of the Underworld asked directly. Song Jianwang stammered and could not say anything. The Lord of the Underworld's eyes shone with a fierce light like flames. He roared, so it is. I didn't guess wrongly. You are a wild and ambitious fellow. So what if you have become the king of hell? I will still take your life today. The tables had turned. No one had expected that the Lord of the Underworld would appear. Moreover, the Lord of the Underworld's anger towards Song Jianwang was obviously very strong. This way, Song Jianwang's situation was even worse. Song Jianwang's expression finally changed drastically. His lies could no longer fool the Lord of the Underworld. This meant that he was attacked from both sides. Now, he should not be thinking about how to capture Tang Zheng, but how to escape with his life. He subconsciously took a step back, trying to activate the King of Hell's seal and leave the 18 levels of hell. However, under the watchful eyes of everyone, the feasibility of his plan was obviously too low. Even if he activated the King of Hell's seal, the others would have a way to stop him immediately. Try to escape? The Lord of the Underworld's words blocked Song Jianwang's escape path. He looked resentful. I said that I would kill you, so I will definitely kill you." The Lord of the Underworld was very domineering. Song Jianwang's expression kept changing. He suddenly had an idea. He suddenly turned to Dizong of Goguryeo and said, "Dizong of Goguryeo, you have always boasted that you want to purify the malicious spirits and evil spirits in the 9 levels of hell. Isn't the Lord of the Underworld one of the greatest examples? Are you going to watch him commit murder without doing anything?" Dizong of Goguryeo looked at Song Jianwang indifferently and said, "Song Jianwang, you are really cunning. You want me to save you again? Haven't you always boasted that you are merciful? Are you going to let the Lord of the Underworld do whatever he wants?" Song Jianwang retorted. When Tang Zheng saw this, he quickly interrupted, "Song Jianwang, you are a king of hell, but you use such a method to provoke him. Do you really think that the Dizong of Goguryeo will fall for your trick?" Tang Zheng naturally did not want the Dizong of Goguryeo to fall for Song Jianwang's provocation. Otherwise, if he let him escape, the news of him coming to the world of spirits and souls would be made public. At that time, he would be surrounded by enemies, and his situation would be very bad. "Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you speak nonsense in front of me?" Song Jianwang was enraged. He did not wish for his chance to live to be ruined by Tang Zheng. At the same time, his hatred for Tang Zheng could be said to have seeped into his bones. He made up his mind, if he was unable to kill this brat this time, then he would definitely find a chance to kill him in the future. Seeing that both sides were at daggers drawn, the Dizong of Goguryeo finally interrupted, "Thank you for your reminder. I know Song Jianwang's intentions very well. I wanted to save him. Of course I know. He used this kind of provocation once before to trick me again. How could I not know?" Chapter 972. Since the Dizong of Goguryeo had already seen through Song Jianwang's intentions, he would definitely not fall for his trick again. Tang Zheng relaxed. Just like Song Jianwang, he wanted to kill the other party. However, the Dizong of Goguryeo changed the topic and said something that shocked everyone. "I liberate all living beings, and all living beings are equal. Song Jianwang is naturally one of them, so I won't watch him die at the hands of the Netherworld King. Moreover, the Netherworld King is already very powerful. If he devours Song Jianwang, his power will definitely be turned upside down. When that happens, it will be even more difficult to restrain him." "Huh?" Song Jianwang laughed maniacally in his heart. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva was actually still so inflexible. For the sake of his so-called beliefs, he was so stubborn and did not know how to be flexible. If that was the case, he would be able to keep his life. Tang Zheng's expression changed slightly, and he sighed secretly. Looking at the Dizong of Goguryeo's resolute expression, he knew that it was useless to say anything more. He could not persuade him at all. The Netherworld King flew into a rage. "Dizong of Goguryeo, you've suppressed me for so many years, and I haven't settled the score with you yet, but you've taken the initiative to come knocking on my door. If that's the case, all of you must die today." After he finished speaking, his furious gaze swept across the few of them. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on the temperature of Tang Zheng's body. He was slightly stunned, and then he was overjoyed. "Haha, there's actually a living person. Strange, strange. There's actually a living person in the world of spirits and souls. The taste must be very delicious." Tang Zheng felt a chill. Indeed, none of the people in the 9 Serenities hell were normal. Even the Netherworld King wanted to eat him. He was not Tang Seng's meat. "Dizong of Goguryeo, you've been trying to liberate the vengeful spirits in the 9 Serenities hell, but you haven't really seen how powerful these vengeful spirits are. Today, I'll open your eyes." The king of the underworld let out a shrill cry that was sharp and ear-piercing. The hearts of the others shuddered as the cry quickly spread throughout the 18 levels of hell. Immediately, a series of sharp echoes came from the inner walls of the 18 levels of hell. The devilish sound entered one's ears and made one's heart tremble. "This isn't an echo." Tang Zheng's expression changed greatly as he shouted, "Haha, smart. This is indeed not an echo. Haven't you always thought that the ghosts in the 9th level of hell are in a state of disunity? Let me tell you, wrong. They're not in a state of disunity. They just lack a leader, and I am that leader now. Their explosive power will be beyond your imagination. As soon as he finished speaking, clouds of black gas emerged from the inner walls of the 18 levels of hell. In the end, they transformed into ghostly faces. Tang Zheng took a closer look. It turned out that there were countless black holes on the inner walls. They were dark and dense, like a beehive. Just now, Tang Zheng had not noticed this at all. At this moment, he looked particularly shocked. It was as if there were countless ghosts hidden in those black holes. They kept letting out sharp cries, and then the ghosts rushed out and circled above their heads. This is... Song Jianwang was dumbfounded. Dizong of Goguryeo sighed faintly and said, "If 10,000 ghosts are not suppressed, the ghost world will be in chaos. The ghost world will be in chaos." Song Jianwang's shoulders trembled. He understood the seriousness of this sentence. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, harbored evil intentions. If the ghost realm was in chaos, wouldn't that be beneficial to him? Dizong of Goguryeo glanced lightly at Tang Zheng, as if he could see through his heart, and said, "If the ghost world is in chaos, the ghost will not be able to reincarnate smoothly. It will do more harm than good to the human world." After hearing this, Tang Zheng could not help but feel a bit ashamed. His thinking was too narrow, blinded by a single leaf. Of course, this did not waver Tang Zheng's determination to absorb the ghost world's origin energy. The human world had to be restored to a large world. The human world had to be stronger than the ghost world, just like it had been many years ago. This was the most beneficial to the human world. Therefore, we should work together to suppress the king of the underworld. This is the best choice. Dizong of Goguryeo continued. Tang Zheng moved his head and asked, "Are you really not a match for the king of the underworld?" Dizong of Goguryeo did not answer, but the king of the underworld answered first. "Since he could not suppress me and let me come into being, it means that my power has surpassed his. Now that he wants to stop me, he's dreaming." Dizong of Goguryeo did not deny it. This meant that the king of the underworld was not lying. This made Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang shocked, especially since Song Jianwang knew that Dizong of Goguryeo was an expert in the ghost world. Now that he was not a match for the king of the underworld, how could he not be shocked? "Regardless of whether I can defeat you, king of the underworld, as long as I'm here, I won't let you do as you please and harm the ghost world," Dizong of Goguryeo said calmly, neither sad nor happy. Song Jianwang, I'll let you live for a while. I'll get rid of Dizong of Goguryeo first, then I'll deal with you," the king of the underworld said aggressively. With a flash, he hovered in front of Dizong of Goguryeo. Dizong of Goguryeo sat in the pool. No matter how strong the waves around him were, they could not hurt him. He raised his head and looked at the king of the underworld lightly, saying, "King of the underworld, then let me see what kind of spell you've comprehended." "Underworld's ghost art," the king of the underworld said lightly. "Oh, what? You've really mastered the underworld's ghost art?" Song Jianwang was shocked. He had heard of this spell before. Back when he was under the king of the underworld, the king of the underworld had mentioned this spell. This spell was a new spell that the king of the underworld had come up with. This spell was extremely vicious, and it required the user to devour countless ghosts for his own use. Back then, the king of the underworld was the king of hell. It was impossible for him to cultivate such a rebellious spell. Apart from Song Jianwang, who was his confidant, very few people knew about it. If the king of the underworld had not mentioned it, Song Jianwang would not have remembered it. Now, he immediately recalled the king of the underworld's description of this spell. He was flabbergasted and could not calm down for a long time. Looking at Song Jianwang's shocked reaction, the lord of the underworld laughed and said, "You actually still remember this set of spells. I really didn't expect you to forget about running away now. Didn't you?" Song Jianwang's expression kept changing. He gritted his teeth and said, "King of the underworld, don't be too happy. Do you really think you can cover the sky with one hand? You're too confident. I'm no longer the Song Jiang for back then." The Dizong of Goguryeo has even comprehended the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Do you think we can't defeat you even if we work together? At this critical moment of life and death, Song Jianguang placed his hope of survival on the Dizong of Goguryeo. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. The king of the underworld was furious. From today onwards, I'll rule over the ghost world. Since you guys are so stubborn, I'll use you guys as a sacrifice to my underworld ghost art. The lord of the underworld clenched his fist, and the Een spirits and malicious ghosts in the air instantly charged toward them. There were over 10,000 Een spirits and malicious ghosts, and there were both ghost citizens, ghost messengers, ghost generals, ghost marshals, and even a few ghost kings. When they attacked together, the battle prowess they unleashed was extremely shocking and powerful. The three of them launched a counterattack at the same time, each with a different style. Tang Zheng drew his bow and shot 3 arrows at the same time. They pierced through the ghosts at the front and skewered the ones at the back. The 3 arrows came from 3 different directions, forming 3 spectacular scenes. The shooting sun arrows were like skewers of candied haws. Even a ghost king could not escape the attack of the shooting sun arrows. The ghosts bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they struggled, trying to break free from the shooting sun arrows. However, the shooting sun arrows shone brightly. In an instant, a series of deafening explosions came from the shooting sun arrows. The ghosts exploded completely, turning into wisps of Yin Qi. At the same time, the king of Hellseal and Song Jianguang's hand shone brightly, turning into thousands of black lights that enveloped the ghosts that were charging over. The ghosts immediately let out shrill cries as they melted into wisps of Yin Qi and were absorbed by the king of Hellseal. The Dizong of Goguryeo's method was the most simple. He casually drew a few complicated runes in the air in front of him. When the ghosts came into contact with the runes, they were immediately enveloped by the golden runes. They struggled nonstop, trying to break free from the runes' imprisonment. However, after a short while, they realized that all their efforts were in vain. Their struggles became slower and slower. In the end, their ferocious expressions became peaceful and peaceful. There was no trace of hostility left. With a flash of golden light, they soared into the sky and disappeared without a trace. They had been purified by the Dizong of Goguryeo. The hostility in their bodies had been removed, and they had become normal ghosts. The 3 of them were very decisive in their attacks, and their power was not to be underestimated. When the Lord of the Underworld saw the ghosts disappear one by one, his expression did not change at all. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in the depths of his eyes. "Is that all?" the Lord of the Underworld asked. "Do you think that everything will be fine after killing those ghosts? Let me tell you, the most powerful thing about the Underworld ghost art is that it can continuously replenish reinforcements. Song Jianguang, you should be very clear about this." Song Jianguang's face was pale as he asked, "Are you really going to do this?" The Lord of the Underworld nodded without hesitation. "Of course. What is he going to do?" The Dizong of Goguryeo had a bad premonition, so he quickly asked. All these years, he had secretly fought with the Lord of the Underworld countless times. He knew very well how powerful the Lord of the Underworld was, so he had never left the Lord of the Underworld's 18 levels of hell. If it were not for his suppression, the Lord of the Underworld would have broken out of the water long ago. He would not have waited until today. He's going to use the Underworld ghost art for real. Song Jianguang's voice was trembling slightly. Ha ha ha! The Lord of the Underworld laughed maniacally when he heard this. The Underworld ghost art. All the ghosts in the world will be at my disposal. Transform. The Lord of the Underworld opened his mouth, and a thunderous voice came out of his throat. He threw his hand, and a black light rushed out of the 18 levels of hell. Even the ghostly labyrinth outside could not hide its power. Boom! A loud sound exploded in the sky. It was as if a hole had been pierced in the sky, and a black hole appeared in the sky without any warning. "This is the Lord of the Underworld's Yama seal," the Dizong of Goguryeo exclaimed. Every Yama king had a Yama seal. When the Lord of the Underworld died, the Yamasil went missing. Everyone thought that it had been destroyed or lost. They did not expect it to still be in the hands of the Lord of the Underworld. This Yamasil was no doubt a divine artifact. It was very powerful. The Yamasil merged with the black hole, and the aura of heaven and earth changed drastically. Almost all the members of the ghost realm saw this strange phenomenon in the sky. Moreover, this strange phenomenon came from the ninth underworld. They were all guessing what had happened. Whoosh whoosh. A strong suction force rose from the ground. Many ghosts screamed and flew toward the black hole in the sky. These ghosts were not only ghost citizens, but also ghost servants, ghost generals, ghost marshals, and even ghost kings. They could not resist the black hole at all and were immediately sucked in. The ghost realm was in chaos. Chapter 973. This earth-shattering scene naturally did not escape the eyes of the kings of hell. When they saw their subordinates flying into the sky one by one and being sucked into the huge black hole, it was as if the end of the world had arrived, and each of them was facing a great enemy. At the same time, they also felt a huge suction force. If it were not for their profound cultivation, they would have been sucked into the black hole as well. What's going on? Roars echoed in the ghost realm, and each of the kings of hell was enraged. Come back. Each of them used their divine powers, and a terrifying aura filled the air, entangling their subordinates and citizens, trying to pull them back. Their cultivation was indeed profound, and many of their citizens were pulled back. Then, one by one, they hid in their houses, trembling, and did not dare to come out again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures rose into the sky one by one, and the 9 kings of hell flew to the sky above their respective cities. With a flash of light in their hands, the king of hell's seal flew into the sky one by one, turning into a huge shield. An invisible force covered their cities, protecting them. However, the protection of the king of hell's seal was limited, and the citizens outside the cities panicked, screaming as they flew into the black hole and disappeared. Infinity and the kings of hell looked at the black hole in the sky that swallowed everything in horror. Their heartstrings trembled and their minds raced, trying to guess what was going on. They tried to use their divine sense to sense the black hole, but they found that once their divine sense entered, it was as if it would be swallowed into the endless abyss. This made them flinch, and they did not dare to probe recklessly. This situation had never happened in the ghost realm, and they were puzzled. The kings of hell resisted with difficulty, protecting their citizens. However, there was no king of hell in King Songjong City, and its resistance was minimal. Many of its citizens were sucked into the black hole, and it was extremely miserable. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A gust of cold wind blew wildly in the 18 levels of hell, and ghosts appeared in the 18 levels of hell, replacing the ghosts that were defeated by the 3 of them. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked, and he subconsciously exclaimed. The appearance of these ghosts was too strange. They appeared in the 18 levels of hell without any warning. It was as if they had been transported here from somewhere. Song Jiangwang's face was pale. He understood the netherworld demonic arts better than the others, so he immediately explained, "This is the netherworld demonic arts. It absorbs the spirits outside the 9 serenities hell for its own use. These spirits are contaminated with the yin qi of the 9 serenities hell and have lost their original nature. They will be used by the netherworld king." I see. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. Suddenly, he locked onto a familiar face among the ghosts. This was a ghost general that he had seen in the city of the Chakravarti king. He was also attracted to this place. Song Jiangwang's thoughts were the most complicated. This was because he had already recognized many familiar faces among these ghosts. These were all his subordinates. On the other hand, the other King Yamluos had far fewer citizens. He immediately understood that it was definitely because he wasn't in the city to defend against the attacks of the Netherworld's ghostly arts. That was why the Netherworld king was able to take advantage of this opportunity. However, he couldn't even protect himself now. He couldn't care less about these citizens. Dizong of Goguryeo finally couldn't sit still anymore. He shouted, "Stop!" Suddenly, lotus flowers bloomed under his body and carried him toward the Netherworld King. He put his palms together and chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Huge scriptures jumped out of his mouth and flew toward the Netherworld King. These scriptures were extremely powerful. When they flew in front of the Netherworld King, they suddenly enlarged and descended from the sky to suppress him. "Oof, you still want to suppress me?" The Netherworld King shouted in disdain. "Children, break his Ksitigarbha Sutra." Following his loud shout, the weather changed. All the ghosts self-destructed and turned into wisps of Yin-Chi. Then, they gathered together to form a huge ghost claw. Whoosh! The golden scriptures were torn apart and couldn't get close to the Netherworld King. The Netherworld King laughed coldly. "This is the Netherworld demonic claw of my Netherworld demonic arts. Can your Ksitigarbha Sutra block it?" The Netherworld demonic claw was a ghost claw formed by gathering all the ghosts. Countless ghosts had to be sacrificed to achieve this. The ghosts that disintegrated and turned into the ghost claw just now had all been sacrificed. This was an irreversible process. The Nether Ghost Claw broke through the sutra and clawed at Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The gigantic ghost claw was like a towering mountain, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. It locked onto Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, leaving him with no place to hide. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva didn't try to evade. Instead, he kept chanting the scriptures. A beam of golden light shot up into the sky from the top of his head and turned into a shining golden palm. Compared to the Netherworld demonic claw, the palm was pathetically small. However, it blocked the Netherworld demonic claw and prevented it from breaking through its defense. Merciful and merciful palm. A voice full of vicissitudes came from the Dizong of Goguryeo. This voice seemed to contain endless compassion, making people feel pity for him. The merciful and merciful palm and the Netherworld demonic claw fought in midair. Brilliant lights flashed, and the golden and black colors reflected each other. Two completely different forces spread in all directions, leaving palm prints and claw marks on the inner walls of the 18 levels of hell. Mercy is the only way to deliver all living beings from torment. The Dizong of Goguryeo chanted the scriptures. The merciful and merciful palm shone brightly and gently hit the Netherworld demonic claw again. With a loud bang, the merciful and merciful palm and the Netherworld demonic claw disappeared at the same time. In this attack, both sides were evenly matched. No one gained the upper hand. The murderous intent in the Netherworld King's eyes burned brighter. He said coldly, "I have the endless power of the world of spirits and souls at my disposal. Dizong of Goguryeo, what abilities do you have to contend with me? If I don't enter hell, who will?" The Dizong of Goguryeo still did not have an intense reaction. He just kept chanting the scriptures. Suddenly, the scriptures that came out of his mouth changed. They turned out to be golden lotuses. Mouth-dazzling lotus. This was an extremely profound spell. Every golden lotus emitted a terrifying power. They flew to the Netherworld King's side and kept spinning, trying to suppress him. "Ha, mouth-dazzling lotus. I've only heard of it before, but I've finally seen it today. However, if you want to use this spell to suppress me, Dizong of Goguryeo, you've underestimated me." The Netherworld King laughed maniacally. However, his smile suddenly disappeared. His expression was ferocious. He crossed his palms in front of his chest, and a string of black lightning suddenly appeared in his palms. Netherworld lightning. Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang shouted at the same time. This Netherworld lightning could harm the Tree of Life. Naturally, one could imagine how powerful it was. Tang Zheng did not expect the Netherworld King to be able to use the Netherworld lightning. Would the Dizong of Goguryeo be able to resist him now? Whoosh whoosh, ghosts continued to appear in the 18 levels of hell. They all self-destructed and merged into the Netherworld King's body. The Netherworld King's body became bigger and bigger. Suddenly, two black wings grew out of the Netherworld King's back. They covered the sky and almost occupied most of the space in the 18 levels of hell. The Netherworld King flapped his wings and flew up. A chilly wind blew. The lightning in his hands became thicker and thicker. Finally, it became as thick as a water bucket. With a shake of his wrist, he shouted, "Netherworld lightning!" Whoosh! The Netherworld lightning flew toward the Dzong of Goguryeo. Bang, bang, bang! The Netherworld lightning whipped the golden lotus. Golden light bloomed. However, it did not last long. The golden lotus turned into wisps of golden light and dissipated. The Dzong of Goguryo's expression changed slightly. He was shocked by the Netherworld King's combat power. The Netherworld Lightning's power was obviously stronger than normal. At least, according to Tang Zheng's judgment, it was stronger than what he had seen before. With his cultivation level, it would be difficult for him to deal with the Netherworld Lightning. However, he was not in a hurry to make a move. This was because the Dzong of Goguryeo had not used his full strength. It was still unknown who would win. Song Jianwang had always wanted to escape. However, after seeing the Netherworld King's terrifying power, he forcefully suppressed this thought. There was no doubt that the Netherworld King would discover him once he used his technique to escape. Even though the Lord of the Netherworld and the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva were engaged in an intense battle right now, as if they had no time to care about anything else, Song Jianwang believed that the Lord of the Netherworld would definitely react the moment he made a move. Song Jianwang felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. He stared at the battle between the Dzong of Goguryeo and the Netherworld King without blinking. This earth-shattering battle shocked him deeply. Only now did he realize how insignificant he was. He was still trying to dominate the world of spirits and souls. With these two stumbling blocks, he would never succeed. The earth-shattering battle between the Dzong of Goguryeo and the Netherworld King caused the 18 levels of hell to tremble. The huge pit shook violently, and the surrounding walls collapsed rapidly. The pit grew bigger and bigger, as if it was going to spread to the ends of the earth. It turned the vast world of spirits and souls into netherworld hell. The Dzong of Goguryo's mouth, brilliant lotus, could not block the netherworld lightning's attack. The Dzong of Goguryo's aura had obviously weakened. This caused Tang Zheng and Song Jianwang's expressions to change at the same time. If the Dzong of Goguryo really could not block the Netherworld King, the world of spirits and souls would definitely be destroyed. When that time came, not only the world of spirits and souls, but also the human world would be affected. Song Jianwang could sit by and do nothing, but Tang Zheng could not stand by and do nothing. However, he was obviously not the Netherworld King's opponent. His eyeballs kept rolling, and his brain was working quickly. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked at the huge black hole formed by the Yama seal in the sky. He had a flash of inspiration, and he secretly cheered, "I've got away." Since the Netherworld King relies on absorbing the power of other ghosts in the world of spirits and souls to support himself, wouldn't it be a great success if I cut off his escape route? If Song Jianwang knew about this idea, he would definitely scoff at it. This was because it was easier said than done. Any ghost that approached the black hole in the sky would definitely be sucked in. How could he cut off the Netherworld King's escape route? Instead, he would become a part of increasing the Netherworld King's strength. Therefore, Song Jianwang could only watch and do nothing. He was like a fish on a chopping board. His life was in the hands of others, and he could not make a decision at all. Chapter 974. Tang Zheng flew into the sky. This scene shocked Dzong of Goguryeo and Song Jianwang. Dzong of Goguryeo subconsciously shouted, "Don't go." However, Tang Zheng did not hear his voice. Song Jianwang was slightly delighted. He thought to himself, this little guy must have been scared silly. He actually took the initiative to fly toward the black hole. Isn't he walking right into the trap? One had to know that the black hole was not only useful to the ghosts in the ghost world, but it was also very attractive to the souls of humans. Once one was sucked in, it would be very difficult to break free. The Netherworld King coldly glanced at Tang Zheng and sneered contemptuously. "Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." With a thought, the suction force of the black hole created by the Yama's seal increased greatly. In an instant, a few muffled bangs were heard. The defenses above the Yama's cities in the ghost world collapsed. One by one, the residents of the ghost world quickly rose into the air and flew toward the black hole. The other kings of hell gritted their teeth and endured. Their faces were terrifyingly pale as they looked at the terrifying black hole in the sky. They had already discovered that the black hole had risen from the 18th level of hell. This meant that something must have happened in the 18th level of hell. Didn't Song Jianwang go to the 18th level of hell to meet Dizong of Goguryeo? Could it be that something had happened? Hundreds of thoughts ran through their minds. Their hearts trembled as they became more and more anxious. This was because there were too many unknowns in the 18th level of hell. However, they soon discovered a strange figure. In the sky, a figure actually rose into the air. This did not look like the ghosts that were sucked into the black hole. This figure was calm and composed. Even though they were far away, the kings of hell could see it clearly. Who is this? This thought appeared in their minds at the same time. As they were too far away, they could not sense Tang Zheng's powerful life force. Otherwise, they would have discovered that he was a living person and not a ghost. Not only the kings of hell, but almost all the residents of the ghost world looked up at the sky. Tang Zheng was as dazzling as the sun. No matter where he was in the world of spirits and souls, his figure could be seen. He attracted everyone's attention. Tang Zheng was in a daze. His eyes were filled with the unfathomable black hole. He had personally experienced the feeling of his soul being sucked out. He was overwhelmed with shock. He understood that this black hole had a fatal effect on the soul. However, at this moment, he already had no choice, and he was utterly unable to escape. Moreover, fleeing would mean that the Netherworld King had his way, and the ghost realm would fall into the hands of the Netherworld King. This was only disadvantageous to him. You know how to attract souls. Do you think I can't? Tang Zheng snorted coldly and pushed his hands forward. Whoosh! A black hole appeared out of thin air, growing bigger and bigger. At the critical moment, he used the sky swallowing technique. Immediately, two black holes appeared in the sky. Although the black hole created by the King Yinlua's seal was larger, the black hole created by the sky-devouring technique wasn't any weaker. The ghosts in the sky seemed to have been immobilized. They were suspended between the two black holes. The two black holes had a great attraction force. The two forces of attraction fought against each other, and the ghosts actually maintained a kind of balance. They could neither advance nor retreat. Ah! Exclamations sounded in the world of spirits and souls. This scene was too bizarre. Even the kings of hell could not do this. The kings of hell were shocked. Where did this master come from? The other party was clearly not the Dizong of Goguryeo. But when did the world of spirits and souls have such a master? Why do they not know? Questions quickly occupied their minds. No matter how hard they racked their brains, they could not figure out the reason and details. They could only be spectators. However, they also benefited a lot. Because the attraction force suddenly decreased, their bodies relaxed, and they hurriedly looked for shelter. The few cities whose defenses had been destroyed quickly reactivated their defenses to protect the cities they lived in. The ghosts were terrified. The residents of the world of spirits and souls were so frightened that they kept quiet. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. However, everyone's common focus was still on Tang Zheng, because the black holes created by his sky swallowing technique were too impressive. Its power was beyond everyone's expectations. This included the 10 kings of hell, and even the Dizong of Goguryeo and the king of the underworld. The king of the underworld's expression changed drastically. His originally ferocious face became even more terrifying, and the flames in his eyes were dancing nonstop. He was the most familiar with his netherworld ghostly art. Of course, he was also the most confident. He thought that none of the residents of the world of spirits and souls could break his netherworld ghostly art. However, the scene in front of him severely damaged his confidence. He almost suspected that this was all a dream. Of course, this was not a dream. It was absolutely real. The king of the underworld was also very clear about this, so the shock in his heart was especially intense. What's with the black holes he created? Is it also the netherworld ghostly art? The king of the underworld muttered to himself. However, he immediately denied this point of view. This was because he knew the netherworld ghostly art too well. One of the key factors behind the success of this art was the king of Hell's Seal. The king of Hell's Seal was connected to the 18 levels of hell. Therefore, using the king of Hell's Seal as a medium, he used the king of Hell's Seal to perform the netherworld ghostly art. When the ghosts were sucked into the black holes, the sinister and vicious Shi in the king of Hell's Seal would take effect. It would seep into the ghosts and transform them, so that they would obey the king of the underworld's orders. As for the ghosts being transported to the 18 levels of hell, this was also because the king of Hell's Seal was connected to the 18 levels of hell. That was why it had such a miraculous effect. Obviously, Tang Zheng did not have the king of Hell's Seal. Even though the king of the underworld was far away, he could tell that the black holes created by Tang Zheng were worlds apart from the black holes created by him. However, there was no doubt that both black holes had great effects on the ghosts. The king of the underworld had never seen this art before. Furthermore, he had looked down on Tang Zheng from the beginning. This human was too weak. He believed that he could kill him without even using a finger. However, at this moment, he realized how ridiculous his thoughts were. He was entangled by Dizong of Goguryeo and had no time to care about anything else. He could only watch as Tang Zheng confronted the black holes created by him in midair. Dizong of Goguryeo was extremely intelligent. He immediately realized the great significance of Tang Zheng's actions. He originally thought that Tang Zheng was doomed. He did not expect him to have a miraculous move that could dissolve the enormous demonic power of the netherworld ghostly art. He had a new understanding of the will of the heavenly axiom. This encounter was not only to save the human world, but also to save the world of spirits and souls. This was because even if Tang Zheng did not come to the 18 levels of hell, the king of the underworld would still break out of the water at this moment. If no one restrained him, the king of the underworld's netherworld ghostly art would be unstoppable. Then, would the world of spirits and souls not fall? Therefore, the heavenly axiom's actions were aimed at saving the human world and the world of spirits and souls. Dizong of Goguryeo had not predicted this before. Seeing that the king of the underworld was trying to end the battle quickly so that he could attack Tang Zheng, Dizong of Goguryeo would not let him succeed. He immediately launched an even more ferocious attack. A seven-colored light lit up under his body, completely covering the light of the golden lotus. In an instant, Dizong of Goguryeo's entire body was bathed in the seven-colored light. However, he did not appear frivolous. Instead, he appeared extremely solemn. Just one look was enough to make one's soul solemn. "The divine Prajna Lotus," the king of the underworld exclaimed. After all, the king of the underworld was once the king of hell. He also knew a lot of information about Dizong of Goguryeo. The divine Prajna Lotus was a supernatural power that Dizong of Goguryeo could only use when he cultivated his spells to the extreme. There were many different opinions about the power of the divine Prajna Lotus, but without exception, it was extremely powerful. Legend had it that the divine Prajna Lotus had a total of 90 to 80 petals to form a huge seven-colored lotus. When a cultivator sat within it, he would immediately become a Buddha. Could it be that Dizong of Goguryeo had become a Buddha? The king of the underworld and King Song Jiangwang had the same thought in their minds at the same time. Their expressions changed drastically. The king of the underworld's fearless and confident attitude was based on the fact that Dizong of Goguryeo had yet to become a Buddha. If he had really become a Buddha, then the king of the underworld would not be his opponent at all. Hell has yet to be emptied. It's impossible for Dizong of Goguryeo to become a Buddha. King Song Jiangwang mumbled to himself in shock. The spells that Dizong of Goguryeo cultivated placed great importance on promises. If he made a heavy oath, he definitely could not go back on it. Otherwise, he would face countless dangers and obstacles on his path of cultivation. This was something that any cultivator would be willing to see happen. This was why King Song Jianguang was so confident that Dizong Goguryeo had yet to become a Buddha. Suddenly, the king of the underworld's gaze was firmly attracted by the petals of the Prajna lotus. He was slightly stunned, but soon after, he beamed with joy. He cried out in surprise, 36 petals. Dizong of Goguryeo, you haven't become a Buddha, nor have you cultivated the true Prajna lotus. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said without sadness or joy, 9981 petals, symbolizing 9981 hardships. Now that I have experienced 36 hardships on the path of cultivation, I naturally have 30 petals. This is not the real Prajna Saint Lotus like you said. It is real. It is just that you have entered a misunderstanding. I don't care about your 81 difficulties or 36 difficulties. As long as you haven't truly become a Buddha, you're not my opponent. The king of the underworld was wild with joy. He roared and swung the netherworld lightning over. Wherever the netherworld lightning passed, the ghost would be sucked into the lightning. Gradually, the lightning became thicker and thicker, as if it was about to fill up the hole in the 18 layers of hell. The ghosts in the 18 layers of hell were all sucked into the netherworld lightning in an instant. The lightning flickered like black pythons, flicking their tongues and emitting a terrifying aura. King Song Jianguang retreated step by step until he reached the wall. There was nowhere for him to go, while the Dizong of Goguryeo and the king of the underworld were ready to attack. They had reached a critical point. King Song Jianguang's heart skipped a beat. If he did not leave now, when would he leave? Times had changed. He believed that the king of the underworld would not be able to take care of him at this moment. As a result, he was prepared to take a gamble. Moreover, if he did not leave, the terrifying netherworld lightning might affect him as well. He would die either way, so it was obviously better to take a gamble. He quickly activated his Yama's seal, and with a flash of light, a black door appeared in front of him. His figure flashed, and he dove into the black door, rolling and crawling as he disappeared. In the next second, he appeared in his own city. Chapter 975. Every citizen of the ghost realm saw the magnificent scene clearly. They looked up at the sky and stared at the scene as if they were in a daze. Their hearts almost stopped beating at this moment. Many kings of hell had the urge to rush to the 18th level of hell to find out, but due to the black hole in the sky, they had no choice but to stop, because they had to stay to protect their own people. But the curiosity in the depths of their hearts was aroused to the extreme. Tang Zheng also saw this scene. Although he was extremely shocked, he still restrained his thoughts and focused on dealing with the black hole in front of him. The ghosts were restrained by the two forces and couldn't move. Their eyes widened as they looked at the black hole in front of them in fear. Suddenly, Tang Zheng found that the suction force of the black hole created by Yama's seal had weakened a little. This change made him overjoyed. Originally, the two sides were in a stalemate, and the two black holes could not do anything to each other. But at this moment, the other black hole weakened, which gave Tang Zheng an opportunity. Before he could figure out the reason, he roared, "Absorb!" He quickly activated his vital energy, and in an instant, the power of the sky swallowing technique increased greatly. Whoosh whoosh. The surrounding air was completely sucked into the black hole, and those ghosts also flew toward the black hole. Seeing that they were about to be sucked into another black hole, the ghosts struggled and screamed, but it was no use. At this moment, the power of the sky swallowing technique overshadowed that of Yama's seal. The suction force of Yama's seal was reduced to the minimum. Whoosh! The black hole created by Yama's seal flew toward Tang Zheng. The skies seemed to collapse, forming a strange vacuum state. The other ghosts were desperate and looked helplessly at the black hole in front of them. The 10 kings of hell had no way to resist at all. They could only watch this scene. They thought that their people could escape, but they were too naive. Song Jianguang's face was pale. Tang Zheng's skill and means were beyond his expectations, especially this move, which made his heart feel like it was about to jump out of his throat. He actually dared to boast shamelessly that he wanted to capture Tang Zheng. He was simply overestimating himself. Looking at the approaching ghosts and black holes, Tang Zheng did not have as many complicated thoughts as the others. At this moment, the only thought in his mind was to win. Of course, he would not learn from the Netherworld King's vicious methods. Seeing that the ghost was about to disappear into the black hole, he immediately stopped using the sky swallowing technique. In an instant, the suction force stopped, and all the ghosts fell to the ground. After regaining their freedom, all of the ghosts danced in excitement and used all of their skills to escape as far as they could. Tang Zheng did not care about these ghosts at all. He flew toward the black hole. He guessed that the sudden decrease in the suction force of the black hole must have had something to do with the loud bang just now. Perhaps Dizong of Goguryeo had used some powerful attack to cause the Lord of the Underworld to lose control of the black hole. Therefore, he wanted to seize this rare opportunity to completely destroy this black hole and cut off the Nether King's path of retreat. Just as he approached the black hole, the suction force suddenly increased. In a moment of carelessness, he was immediately enveloped by a powerful suction force. Before he could react, his figure disappeared into the black hole. Ah! Cries of surprise echoed in the world of spirits and souls. Obviously, no one had expected this. They originally thought that Tang Zheng was going to win, but they did not expect that he would be sucked into the black hole as well. Song Jianwang had mixed feelings. Without the suppression of this living person, wouldn't the nether ghost arts be invincible in this world? Then, even if he bitterly held on and resisted the suction force, there would be a time when he would be exhausted. However, on the other hand, Tang Zheng represented the human forces. Without him, the world of spirits and souls might be able to avoid the danger of being downgraded to a small world. All the residents of the world of spirits and souls trembled in fear and hid in their houses. Without this brave warrior to resist the black hole, would it not be difficult for them to escape the fate of being sucked into the black hole? Their faces were ashen, as if their souls were about to scatter. The 18 levels of hell were in a mess. The 18 levels of hell had completely collapsed, and the area had increased by dozens of times, turning into a huge ruin. This was the result of the battle between Dizong of Goguryeo and the Lord of the Underworld. Even the ghostly labyrinth at the periphery had disappeared, and the 18 levels of hell had completely merged with the 9th level of hell outside. Waves of ruthless Yin Qi drifted out, and the 9th level of hell spread out rapidly. The Yin Qi soared into the sky, and everywhere it passed, there was an aura of death. Even the sky above their heads became darker and darker. Dizong of Goguryeo and the Lord of the Underworld floated in mid-air, and there were traces of battle on their bodies. The 9th level of hell lightning had disappeared, and so did the Prajnal Lotus. Only the two of them were left. However, Dizong of Goguryeo stood up and simply floated in the air, confronting the Lord of the Underworld. However, at this moment, both of them looked at the sky at the same time and saw the scene of Tang Zheng being sucked into the black hole. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression changed abruptly. He was very clear about the power of the King of Hell's Seal. Moreover, this was the King of Hell's Seal that had been imbued with the Netherworld's demonic arts. Its power was even more incomparable. This person had been sucked into the King of Hell, and he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He had completely fallen into the Lord of the Underworld's control. Wouldn't the heavenly axiom's decree be unable to be carried out? No, he definitely couldn't let him die like this. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression became very resolute, and there was a strange look in his eyes for the first time. It was difficult for him to maintain his composure. He put his palms together and stared at the Lord of the Underworld without blinking. He was extremely fierce. The Lord of the Underworld laughed heartily. Haha, this brat is still no match for me. How can the Netherworld's demonic arts be so easily broken? I want to destroy his body and soul in the King of Hell's Seal and scatter his soul. I won't let you have your way, Dizong of Goguryeo shouted. He took a step forward and walked toward the Lord of the Underworld. Every time Dizong of Goguryo's feet landed, ripples would undulate. At the same time, golden lotuses would appear and bloom under his feet. Lotuses with every step. This was another great divine ability. The Lord of the Underworld's expression changed slightly, and he said, Dizong of Goguryo, who exactly is this person? Why do you want to save him even though you've mobilized so many people? Dizong of Goguryo said coldly, the Vajra's glare. As soon as he finished speaking, golden halos appeared all over his body. He was like a golden man, like a Vajra. His angry eyes were wide open, causing those who looked at him to tremble in fear. The Vajra was an important divine ability among the divine arts that Dizong of Goguryo cultivated. The Vajra's glare was a wake-up call. The Lord of the Underworld's expression darkened, and he snorted coldly. You're really determined to save that brat. I won't let you have your way. So what if the Vajra's glare is a glare? Azura descends, kill. The word kill contained boundless murderous intent. The aura of heaven and earth changed because of it. The Yin-Chi in the hell of the 9 underworlds changed the way it spread. It gathered from all directions and completely condensed together. A bolt of 9 underworlds lightning flashed past, and a huge shadow appeared in the sky. The water in the pool kept boiling. It was like a water dragon rising into the sky and gathering in the huge shadow. In an instant, the shadow underwent an earth-shattering change. It gradually condensed into a physical body and rapidly shrunk to the size of a normal person. Azura descends, slaughter the world. The Lord of the Underworld roared. Roar. The Azura also let out a roar. This sound spread far and wide, even further than the Lord of the Underworld's voice. The entire world of spirits and souls heard it, and it was shaken. Just this sound alone almost scared some timid ghosts out of their wits. They all shrank into a corner, their faces pale and trembling. Azura, Dizong of Goguryo, looked at this thing that suddenly appeared in shock. The Azura was a legendary existence in the world of spirits and souls. It was said that he condensed the most ruthless Yin-Chi in the world of spirits and souls. Moreover, it depended on fate. After so many years of legends, no one had seen the real Azura. Moreover, if anyone subdued the Azura, their power in the world of spirits and souls would increase greatly. They would become an existence that was not inferior to the 10 kings of hell. Even the 10 kings of hell could not compare. The Lord of the Underworld had the ability to make the Azura descend. It was obvious how high his cultivation was. Dizong of Goguryo was not afraid. Instead, he became more determined. Whether it was the Lord of the Underworld or the Azura, they must be eliminated. Otherwise, the world of spirits and souls would really be plunged into misery and suffering. This was because the Azura's combat power was too strong. It only listened to its master's orders. It was a complete killing machine. Azura's sword. The Lord of the Underworld roared again. The Azura's long hand reached forward and grabbed at the void. A bolt of 9 serenity's lightning appeared out of thin air and quickly condensed into the shape of a sword. The Azura's sword. It was refined from 9 serenity's lightning. Its power was imaginable. Dizong of Goguryo's eyes widened. His face was full of anger. He also roared, Devil Vanquishing Staff. A golden light flashed in the air. A shining golden staff appeared in his hand. Lotuses bloomed under his feet. With the Devil Vanquishing Staff in hand, he rushed toward the Azura. 9 serenity's lightning danced in the Azura's eyes. With the Azura's sword in hand, it roared and rose from the ground as if it was invincible. It descended from the sky and slashed toward Dizong of Goguryo. When the sword landed, the world fell silent. Only this sword was left. Time and space seemed to have frozen. Other than this sword, there was nothing else in the world. What was a sword technique? This was a sword technique. It was extremely simple, but it was invincible. It was as if any obstacle would vanish under this sword. If an ordinary person faced this sword, they would have been killed by this aura before the sword landed. They would have been turned into ashes, and their souls would have been scattered. The water in the pool had dried up. where the sword pointed, a crack appeared at the bottom of the pool. It grew bigger and bigger, like a natural ravine. Dizong of Goguryeo waved his devil-vanquishing staff. Golden light filled the sky. A golden staff shadow hit the azure sword hard. Wherever the golden light passed, the world was dyed golden. It was solemn and was completely different from the gloomy environment around it. Chapter 976. The demon-vanquishing staff clashed with the azure saber. The saber and the staff clashed. In an instant, the heavens and earth lost their color. These two weapons had undoubtedly become the center of attention. The shockwave was like an atomic bomb that could destroy the heavens and earth. Dust and gravel filled the sky and spread in all directions. Thick and high smoke and dust swept across the sky like a sandstorm, almost connecting the sky and the earth, covering the sun and the sky. It swept across the entire ninth Serenity Hell at a supersonic speed and quickly rolled toward the nearest city. Boom, boom, boom. Everywhere it passed, the villages turned into ruins and were swept up into the sky. Without the protection of Iyama's seal, the people of the world of spirits and souls had long been sucked into the black hole and became a dead village. At this moment, even the last trace of the village's existence had been wiped clean. The smoke and dust was invincible. Everything in its path was turned into nothingness. It slowly approached the nearest city. The Chakravarti king floated in midair and held the Yama's seal tightly. Rays of light fell and covered the huge Chakravarti city. It was like a huge protective shield that protected his city and his people. The people in the city were still in shock. What they had seen and heard today was something that they had never expected in their lives. They saw the black smoke and dust approaching from the horizon. One by one, they tried to escape but found that the protective shield of the Yama seal not only protected them, but also restricted their movements. No matter how hard they tried, they could not break out. The Chakravarti king's face was extremely gloomy. He roared, "Stop! Don't be impatient. I'm here. What are you afraid of?" After hearing the reprimand of the city lord, the people gave up on escaping. However, they could not remain calm. They knelt down and kowtowed to the Chakravarti king, begging for his protection. The Chakravarti king continued to channel his powers as he gritted his teeth. He did not know what had caused this, but there was no doubt that something had happened in the 18 levels of hell that had caused this. He and his city had become the fish that had been caught in the crossfire. Not only was it for his people, but it was also for himself. He had to face it head-on and not run. If he ran away, his people would no longer exist. Then, as the king of hell, he would be all alone. What was the point of that? He took a deep breath and looked at the approaching smoke and dust. He secretly cheered himself on. Finally, the smoke and dust hit the protective shield. Boom! An earth-shattering boom rang out, and the protective shield began to tremble violently, emitting creaking sounds. The Chakravarti king's face turned pale in an instant. His arm that was holding onto the Yama's seal trembled uncontrollably as his veins bulged. He cried out sorrowfully in his heart. The ferocity of this attack was far beyond his expectations. Kacha! With a crisp sound, the light shield shattered into pieces. Smoke and dust swept across the towering city walls of Chakravarti City. The city walls collapsed and turned into ruins. Ah! Sharp screams sounded from within the city one after another. This smoke was fatal. Everywhere it passed, all creatures were turned into nothingness, their souls scattered. Groups of people from the ghost realm fled in all directions, trying to escape the pursuit. However, the speed of the smoke was much faster than them. It caught up to them in the blink of an eye, leaving them no place to hide. High up in the sky, the Chakravarti king could only watch helplessly as countless of his people died. This time, he was really going to be all alone. Seeing that the smoke and dust was right in front of him, he subconsciously swung the Yama's seal to counterattack. However, with a loud bang, the Yama's seal cracked. The Chakravarti king watched in disbelief as his magic treasure shattered into pieces. This was a heaven-grade magic treasure. How could it be so easily damaged? Just that blow alone had not only broken through the light shield, it had also caused irreversible damage to the Yama's seal. Once he channeled his inner power into the Yama's seal, it would die of old age. Although the Chakravarti king was heartbroken, his rationality prevailed when he saw the smoke and dust coming towards him. He could no longer care about his people. He transformed into a ray of light and fled into the distance like a stray dog. He flew tirelessly for a long time before he turned around to look behind him. He could no longer see Chakravarti city. It was completely shrouded in smoke and dust. Not a single person had escaped. Faced with the obstruction of this majestic city, the momentum of the smoke and dust gradually weakened. Finally, it dissipated as if it had never appeared. However, the razed Chakravarti city still showed traces of its existence. The Chakravarti king stopped and looked at his city from afar. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Who did he offend? Why did he have to suffer such an unexpected calamity? He looked up at the sky and let out a long howl. His voice was mixed with a myriad of emotions and reverberated throughout the world. However, no one cared about his gains and losses. Everyone was attracted by the 18 levels of hell and the black hole in the sky. After the black hole sucked Tang Zheng away, it did not stop. Instead, it became even more unscrupulous and started to absorb the ghosts in the world. Some of the weaker kings of hell were struggling to hold on. They were on the verge of collapse, and the protective shield seemed like it would break at any time. In the world of spirits and souls, the cities of the kings of hell were far apart. Although everyone saw the smoke and dust in the sky, no one saw that Chakravarti city had been destroyed by the smoke and dust. Naturally, they could not feel the terrifying power of the smoke and dust. 18 levels of hell. Looking from afar, everything in the surroundings had collapsed. After the smoke and dust dissipated, only 3 figures were still standing on the ruins. Dizong of Goguryeo, the lord of the underworld, and Azura were dozens of meters away from each other. They stood in a triangular formation and faced each other from afar. The golden glow of the demon-vanquishing staff had dimmed significantly, and the aura of the Azura saber had also weakened. The impact of the collision between the two parties was earth-shattering. This was something that even Dizong of Goguryeo did not expect. This was a battle between experts. Every single move could practically destroy the heavens and the earth. This battle also caused another effect, and that was the complete disappearance of the vengeful spirits and malicious spirits in the 9 Serenities hell. They were completely wiped out. This effect was even more immediate than when Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had enlightened them. However, these spirits and spirits had their souls scattered, which was naturally more effective than when Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had enlightened them. Dizong of Goguryeo felt that it was a pity. He had a compassionate heart, but he could not control everything. The result today was a variable that was beyond his control. Vajra's glare, severe warning? Haha, that's all there is to it. Dizong of Goguryeo, you are a joke. Now that Azura and I are here, and we have the netherworld ghost arts, who in the world of spirits and souls can stop us? Is it you? Can you do it? The lord of the underworld laughed wildly and proudly. The anger on Dizong of Goguryeo's face gradually disappeared. It was replaced by grief. A pair of eyes full of pity looked in all directions. The 9th level of hell had been destroyed. It had truly become a land of death. Other than the 3 of them, there was not even a single spirit left. Dizong of Goguryeo let out a long sigh. He put his palms together and recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra loudly. Scriptures flew out from his mouth and danced around him at high speed. They were like butterflies flying through flowers. The lord of the underworld looked at this scene with disdain. He sneered and said, "You are about to die, and you are still trying to be mysterious. I want to see what other tricks you have." Dizong of Goguryeo finished reciting the entire Ksitigarbha Sutra. The scriptures no longer danced in the air. Instead, they landed on his body. His entire body was shining with golden light. All the scriptures intertwined and actually formed a kasaya. It was dazzling and looked dignified. He sat down cross-legged. A huge, seven-colored prajna lotus bloomed under him and lifted him up. The prajna lotus bloomed slowly. One petal after another kept on blooming. When it reached the 36th petal, it did not stop. The petals continued to bloom rapidly, as if there was no end to it. The Lord of the Underworld was suddenly stunned. His expression changed slightly. The prajna lotus that Dizong of Goguryeo transformed into clearly only had 36 petals. How did it suddenly become so many petals? How many petals were there? 40, 41, 42. It was still blooming. Could it be that he had reached the peak state of the prajna lotus when he had 81 petals? No, how is this possible? How could he do all this in such a short time? It was absolutely impossible. If hell is not empty, I swear I will not become a Buddha. If hell is empty, I will become a Buddha immediately. These words were like pearls. They were recited by Dizong of Goguryeo and reverberated above the desolate ruins. The Lord of the Underworld's divine soul trembled. He had never heard these words before. This was because when Dizong of Goguryeo swore this heavy oath, he had already been infected by the yin qi of the 9 underworlds. He had sunk to the bottom of the 18 levels of hell. Now that he heard these words, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He stared at Kitagarbha Bodhisattva without blinking. Suddenly, he saw Kitagarbha Bodhisattva put on the golden kasaya and bathe in the sacred golden light. The vanquishing devil staff in his hand lit up with scriptures, and the prajna divine lotus kept blooming its petals until it stopped at the 56th petal. The power of the 56 petals prajna lotus was much stronger than when it only had 36 petals. Every petal of the prajna lotus symbolized a calamity that the practitioner would encounter in the process of cultivation. From 36 petals to 56 petals, Dizong of Goguryeo had experienced 20 calamities. These calamities were in the heart and not in the external form. Therefore, these 20 tribulations were what he had experienced during this short exchange of blows. Although the prajna lotus hadn't reached its peak state, it didn't affect Dizong of Goguryeo from becoming a Buddha. With his cultivation and temperament, he had already met the conditions to become a Buddha. However, because he swore a heavy oath and hell wasn't empty, he couldn't break through this barrier. Now, due to a free combination of factors, the battle between Dizong of Goguryeo and Azura affected a wide area. Everything in hell had disappeared, and hell had collapsed. Hell had become empty, so his oath was broken. When hell was empty, he would become a Buddha on the spot. Therefore, all of this happened naturally. There was no need for Dizong of Goguryeo to make any preparations. He recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra and turned it into a kasaya. When the kasaya was attached to his body, he would become a Buddha on the spot. Buddha was the final form of his divine power, so he had almost reached the peak of his cultivation. However, he hadn't experienced enough calamities. The prajna lotus only had 56 petals, so he hadn't truly reached the peak of Buddha. Chapter 977. Dizong of Goguryeo wore a kasaya and looked solemn. He raised his eyes and looked at Shura and the Lord of the Underworld quietly. Shura did not have his own consciousness and was not afraid at all. However, the Lord of the Underworld was shocked. This was just a look, but it was completely different from before. The Lord of the Underworld quickly channeled his energy and roared, Dizong of Goguryeo, so what if you become a Buddha? Shura and I will kill you if we work together. Kill. The word kill emitted a strong, murderous aura and soared into the sky. The Lord of the Underworld and Shura moved at the same time and attacked Dizong of Goguryeo. The Shura's saber lit up again and swept over with an unparalleled, murderous aura. Dizong of Goguryeo sat on the prajna lotus and raised his arm gently. Whoosh! He waved the demon-vanquishing wand from top to bottom, and a golden light flashed past. The sky seemed to be covered by the golden light, and the yin-qi retreated wherever the golden light passed. Bang! The demon-vanquishing wand hit the Shura saber. The Shura saber pressed down and hit Shura's shoulder directly. A stream of blood-like liquid flowed down from his shoulder. Roar! Shura let out a heart-wrenching roar and tried to break free from the Shura saber. However, he realized that the Shura saber was pressed down on his shoulder by the demon-vanquishing wand. He could not lift it at all. The Lord of the Underworld was shocked when he saw this, and his expression changed. The Dizong of Goguryeo, who had become a Buddha, was beyond his expectations. He was so strong. Kill! The Lord of the Underworld roared and waved his hand. Whoosh! The Yamasil in the sky flew down and returned to the Lord of the Underworld's hand. The black hole disappeared, and the people of the ghost realm felt relieved. Go! A voice came from the Lord of the Underworld's throat, and the Yamasil attacked Dizong of Goguryeo directly. From top to bottom, the force was extremely strong. Dizong of Goguryeo did not even look at it. He waved the demon-vanquishing wand casually. When the staff imprints collided, there was no strong shockwave. Everything was as calm as the surface of an ancient well without ripples. Everything was still. After a long time, bang! The Yamasil flew back and collided with the Lord of the Underworld. The Lord of the Underworld's tall body immediately became bent. Like a kite with a broken string, he was carried away by this force and flew far away. The combat prowess of a first-stage Mahayana realm cultivator was truly shocking. He directly crushed the Shura and the Lord of the Underworld. The Lord of the Underworld would never have dreamed that after hell was emptied, it would bring such a drastic change to the Dizong of Goguryeo. At this moment, the Lord of the Underworld was filled with regret. The King of the Underworld flew for a long distance before he finally came to a stop. He realized that his own Yamasil had almost created a huge hole in his chest. Before he could heal his injuries, he saw Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva hitting Azura's shoulder tirelessly with his staff again and again. At first, the Azura could still take it head-on, but he didn't have the strength to fight back. In the end, the Shura's strong legs were finally unable to withstand the continuous attacks. Thump! He knelt on the ground, and the ground trembled. The Lord of the Underworld's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when Ashura knelt. The Lord of the Underworld's heart was filled with despair and desolation. At this point, he understood that his accumulation of power this time had failed. After Dizong of Goguryeo became a Buddha, he was no match for him at all. If he continued to delay, he would probably end up with his soul destroyed. He made a prompt decision and prepared to escape while Dizong of Goguryeo was dealing with the Shura. He looked at the Shura unwillingly and prepared to turn around and leave. Suddenly, the Yamasil trembled violently. What was going on? Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. He hurriedly entered the Yamasil with his divine sense. In an instant, he was stunned as if he had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. After Tang Zheng was sucked into the Yamasil, his soul didn't dissipate. He discovered that he had entered an empty space. This space was similar to a Sumeru pouch, but it was bigger. However, it still couldn't be compared to a storage Dharma treasure like the Sumeru world. In this empty space, he couldn't find a way to escape, so he could only wander around. Suddenly, an earth-shattering power came from all directions, as if it wanted to crush his soul into pieces. He was shocked, but he didn't panic. He made a prompt decision and used the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole miraculously appeared in front of him. He was overjoyed that he could use the sky-swallowing technique smoothly in this space. This space contained an extremely tyrannical amount of yin-chi. As soon as the black hole appeared, the yin-chi poured in like a flood breaking through a dam. In an instant, the yin-chi decreased rapidly, and even the space became unstable. The pressure on Tang Zheng was greatly reduced. He had no other choice. Seeing that this method was very effective, he continued to use the sky-swallowing technique to absorb the yin-chi without stopping. As time passed, the king of the Netherworld's attention was completely attracted by Dizong of Goguryeo. He didn't have time to care about what was happening in the Yamasil. Finally, the balance of the yin-chi in the Yamasil was broken. The Yama seal was the most powerful Dharma treasure of the kings of hell. The Yin Shi was the most important. When the balance of the Yin Shi was broken, the Yama seal's power decreased sharply. The Yama seal seemed to be in danger of shattering, so it started to tremble violently. The Netherworld King just so happened to see this scene. When his divine sense extended in and was prepared to investigate, he shockingly discovered that Tang Zheng was safe and sound. What made him even more terrified was that the Yama seal was in imminent danger. "What did you do?" The king of the Netherworld's angry, questioning voice rang out in the Yama seal. Tang Zheng raised his head and looked around. He said casually, "You sucked me in and wanted to kill me. Of course, I wanted to save my life. Why can you damage my Yama seal?" The Yama seal was the key to the Netherworld's ghostly art. Without the Yama seal, his Netherworld's ghostly art was like a castle in the air. It looked good, but he couldn't use it at all. The Yama seal's power had decreased a lot, so his Netherworld's ghostly art would be greatly affected. "Ha!" Tang Zheng laughed coldly. "So what if your Yama seal is strong? I have the sky swallowing technique to restrain you. You can continue to lock me up. I'm not in a hurry. However, your Yama seal will definitely turn into scrap metal in the end." Tang Zheng gradually figured out from the king of the Netherworld's reaction that the sky-swallowing technique not only had a special restraining effect on ghosts, but also had a miraculous effect on the Yama seal. This made him overjoyed. The second half of the sky-swallowing technique that he found in the Langya Pavilion was really a priceless treasure. If it wasn't for the powerful effect of the sky-swallowing technique, his trip to the ghost realm would have been doomed. The king of the Netherworld was angry and anxious. He hurriedly used his divine ability in an attempt to kill Tang Zheng and make his soul scatter. Endless Yin Qi attacked Tang Zheng. Once the Yin Qi invaded his body, his soul would definitely be destroyed. However, Tang Zheng was not afraid in the slightest. He only activated the swallowing heavens technique step by step, and that mighty Yin Qi was actually unable to get close to him at all. It was completely sucked in by the black hole in front of him. As a result, the more Yin Qi the king of the Netherworld mobilized, the greater the damage to the Yama seal. This was completely unexpected to the king of the Netherworld. The king of the Netherworld let out a deafening roar. This was clearly bullying. Although Tang Zheng's cultivation was worlds apart from the king of the Netherworld's, he had the sky-swallowing technique, a unique divine ability that defied the natural order. He could dominate the world with one move, and it actually made the king of the Netherworld feel helpless. The king of the Netherworld was really going crazy. He watched helplessly as the quality of the Yama seal fell from a sage artifact to a heaven-grade artifact. His heart was bleeding. "I won't let you have your way." The king of the Netherworld roared crazily. With a thought, Tang Zheng was expelled from the Yama seal. With a flash of light, Tang Zheng found himself back in the ghost realm. He did not run away. Instead, he took advantage of the situation and pounced forward. Since the Yama seal could not hurt him, he might as well strike while the iron was hot. He wanted to see if there could be further developments. Whoosh whoosh. The sky-swallowing technique still had a unique effect. The black hole was aimed at the Yama seal, and the ferocious suction force firmly enveloped the Yama seal. "What are you doing now?" The king of the Netherworld widened his eyes in horror as he watched the Yama seal slowly approaching the black hole. No matter how he activated the Yama seal, it could not completely get rid of the suction force. How can this be? The king of the Netherworld originally thought that everything would be fine once he released Tang Zheng. He did not expect the situation to become worse. The suction force of the black hole firmly locked onto the Yama seal, and he could not do anything. He could not help but think of the ghosts that were sucked away by his Netherworld ghostly technique. Everything seemed to be predestined. This was karma. "I don't believe that I can't suppress you with my skills." The king of the Netherworld gave up on the Yama seal and attacked Tang Zheng directly. With a wave of his hand, a huge palm slammed toward Tang Zheng's head. Tang Zheng did not have time to look around. He could only watch as the king of the Netherworld's palm slammed down. Moreover, he really did not have much ability to resist the king of the netherworld attack. Stop! The Dizong of Goguryeo saw this from afar and shouted in shock. Whoosh! The demon-vanquishing staff turned into a golden light and flew over, hitting the huge palm hard. Bang! The king of the netherworld's palm broke and turned into wisps of Yin-Chi. In the blink of an eye, they were sucked away by the black hole. No! The king of the netherworld roared in pain and staggered backward. He hugged his broken arm and bared his teeth, glaring at the Dizong of Goguryeo, who was flying over. Dizong of Goguryeo, I'm going to kill you. The king of the netherworld roared like a madman. King of the netherworld, are you still so stubborn? The Dizong of Goguryeo sighed faintly and asked, Put away your bewitching words. Why would I, the king of the netherworld, listen to your bewitching words? The king of the netherworld was furious. Sigh, if that's the case, then go with the wind and return peace to the world of spirits and souls. The Dizong of Goguryeo said, It's not that easy to kill me. The king of the netherworld roared. While the two of them were facing each other, Tang Zheng activated the sky swallowing technique. The suction force of the black hole increased greatly. With a flash of light, the Yama's seal disappeared and was sucked into the black hole. No! The king of the netherworld screamed and quickly turned his head, but he realized that it was too late. Chapter 978. The black hole trembled violently, and a huge change was taking place. Tang Zheng realized something, and he hurriedly activated the sky swallowing technique. Waves of strange energy reverberated around the black hole. What have you done? The Lord of the Underworld was furious. Give me back my Yama's seal. Now that the Yama's seal had disappeared, his underworld ghost technique had completely lost its effect. This drastic move had caused him to fall into a hopeless situation. How could he not be furious? He did not care about his injuries, nor did he care about the Dizong of Goguryeo, who was glaring at him from the side. His face was extremely ferocious, and his body flashed with a black light. In the next second, he appeared in front of Tang Zheng and grabbed Tang Zheng's body with all his might, wanting to cut him into pieces. It seemed that this was the only way he could vent the anger in his heart. Tang Zheng's mind was completely focused on the sky swallowing technique. Moreover, the Lord of the Underworld was too fast, and he could not dodge at all. He could only watch as the Lord of the Underworld grabbed him. Give me back my Yama's seal. The Lord of the Underworld roared at the top of his lungs as he tore at Tang Zheng with all his might. The immense pain made Tang Zheng frown, and he instinctively grabbed the Lord of the Underworld. Boom! The black hole in midair let out a loud explosion, and the airflow in all directions flowed toward it. The suction force was more than a few times stronger than before, and the aura of heaven and earth changed. The sky-swallowing technique was automatically activated under Tang Zheng's body. 2 more suction forces were generated from Tang Zheng's palms, and they firmly locked onto the Lord of the Underworld. The Lord of the Underworld's power flowed into Tang Zheng's palms like a flood. The Lord of the Underworld's cultivation was extremely terrifying, and he was equivalent to a 9th-stage soul formation cultivator. Therefore, his power was simply too great. Although it happened in an instant, a lot of power flowed into Tang Zheng's body. This was the effect of the 2nd stage of the sky swallowing technique. Tang Zheng rarely used this ability because the power he absorbed was ultimately an external power. Although it could temporarily increase his cultivation, it was not a long-term solution. However, at that moment, in order to save his life, he couldn't care less. Since he could absorb the Netherworld King's power, he would not let go of this rare opportunity. Absorption. Tang Zheng's eyes were as bright as the stars as he frantically absorbed the king of the underworld's power. At that moment, he was like a balloon, and the king of the underworld's power was like hydrogen gas, filling Tang Zheng's 8 extraordinary meridians and internal organs with this power. However, he still didn't dare to stop for even a moment. In an instant, the Underworld King's cultivation actually dropped by 1 stage, becoming the 8th stage of the Divine Transformation Realm. This caused the King of the Netherworld to almost go crazy. Not only had his magic treasure been taken away, even the power that he had painstakingly cultivated had been sucked away. Was there any justice in this world? He really had a feeling of speechlessness and was asking the heavens, "Get out of my way." The king of the netherworld roared and surged all the power in his body. A majestic force directly shook off Tang Zheng's palms. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would not be able to break free from Tang Zheng's sky-swallowing technique. However, the king of the netherworld risked his life and finally shook off Tang Zheng with this attack. The king of the netherworld hurriedly retreated, not even caring about the Yama's seal. Even in his dreams, he had never thought that this insignificant human would have such a divine ability. He had never heard of it before, and it made him tremble with fear. This did not mean that Tang Zheng was very powerful. The most important thing was that the king of the netherworld took the initiative to grab onto Tang Zheng in a moment of desperation. Tang Zheng had been constantly using the sky-swallowing technique, so naturally his power was sucked away. This was mainly because of the strange effect of the sky-swallowing technique. It was not that Tang Zheng's cultivation could really hurt the king of the netherworld. The king of the netherworld was not aware of this. He was gradually frightened by Tang Zheng's mystical methods until his heart trembled. When Dizong of Goguryeo saw this scene, he had mixed feelings and was very glad. The person chosen by the heavenly axiom was indeed not an ordinary person. His cultivation seemed to be weak, but he had unexpected divine abilities. Even the king of the netherworld was at a disadvantage because of a moment of carelessness. However, Dizong of Goguryeo would not give the king of the netherworld another chance to attack. In a flash, he stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. Without saying a word, he directly struck the king of the netherworld with the devil vanquishing staff. The king of the netherworld raised his only arm to block, but with a bang his only arm also exploded. The devil vanquishing staff landed on his head. Golden light shone brightly and completely enveloped him. Roar! The king of the netherworld kept roaring and struggling, but it was to no avail. The golden light became brighter and brighter, seeping into every part of his body. Squeak! Light smoke rose from the king of the netherworld's body. The king of the netherworld was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, streaks of golden scriptures flew out from the devil vanquishing staff and covered the king of the netherworld's body. The golden light reached an extremely bright and dazzling point. Boom! With a loud explosion, the king of the netherworld exploded and disappeared without a trace. The golden light disappeared, and everything returned to normal. The king of the netherworld had been scheming and secretly accumulating for so many years. However, he failed at the last moment. He was still defeated by Dizong of Goguryeo. Because of this, the Dizong of Goguryeo became a Buddha earlier. Dizong of Goguryeo put his palms together and chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra. His solemn voice reverberated in the surroundings, and everything returned to normal. However, a furious roar broke the silence. The Azura actually stood up again. Without the king of the netherworld's control, the Azura was on the verge of going berserk. Any living being within his field of vision would become his target. Now, he was a killing machine. Therefore, although Shura had suffered a lot at the hands of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and both of his shoulders were almost broken, he still rushed over without fear of death, ruthlessly slashing the Shura saber at Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Dizong of Goguryeo looked at the Azura and said, "The king of the netherworld is dead. Then you can go with him." He waved the devil vanquishing staff. This time, it hit the Azura's head directly. Half of his head was almost flattened, but he still did not die. Instead, he kept roaring at the Dizong of Goguryeo and bared his teeth. The golden light firmly wrapped around the Azura, but the Azura did not stop struggling. After a while, the Azura did not explode like the king of the netherworld and disappear into thin air. This, the Azura, has an immortal body. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression changed slightly. Only then did he realize how terrifying the Azura was. The Azura's combat power was definitely not as strong as the Dizong of Goguryeo. However, The Dizong of Goguryeo could not kill the Azura. This was equivalent to the Azura having an immortal body. This was something that the Dizong of Goguryeo had never thought of. Even the legends of the Azura did not mention this point. The Azura was an existence that was more powerful than the legends. If he was not controlled and continued to kill, the world of spirits and souls would probably be wiped out by him in the end. Dizong of Goguryeo's expression was solemn. His mind was full of thoughts. Suddenly, he muttered to himself, "If that's the case, then I'll keep you. However, your ferocious nature is hard to tame. I'll give you the Vajra Devil Vanquishing Staff." Dizong of Goguryeo pointed at the Azura, and a golden halo flew out from his fingertip. The Azura kept struggling, but he was firmly locked in by the golden light of the Devil Vanquishing Staff. All his resistance was futile. The golden halo flew to the top of the Azura's head and steadily landed on the top of the Azura's head. The golden light shone and turned into a golden halo, fusing seamlessly with the top of the Azura's head. Dizong of Goguryeo put away the Devil Vanquishing Staff. The Azura was freed and immediately counterattacked, fiercely attacking the Dizong of Goguryeo. Dizong of Goguryeo did not dodge at all. Instead, he looked at the Azura with interest. Seeing that the Azura saber was about to fall on the top of the Dizong of Goguryeo's head, he was still as firm as a rock. His lips moved, and between his opening and closing, the Ksitigarbha Sutra flowed out of his mouth like a trickle of water. The Azura saber stopped on the top of the Dizong of Goguryeo's head. Seeing that it was about to cut through the smooth top of the head, it strangely stopped and could not fall any further. The flames in the Azura's eyes calmed down bit by bit. The violent aura around his body decreased by a lot. He was like a statue, not moving at all. After finishing the Ksitigarbha Sutra, the Dizong of Goguryeo stopped. The Azura was also completely silent. Dizong of Goguryeo stared at the Azura and said, "The Diamond Devil Vanquishing Ring is extremely powerful. After accumulating it for a long time, it will definitely be able to eliminate the violent aura in your heart." The Diamond Devil Vanquishing Ring was a magic treasure. It had to be used in conjunction with the Ksitigarbha Sutra to display its true power. It was best for suppressing evil spirits. Since the Azura could not be killed, then Dizong of Goguryeo would use the Diamond Devil Vanquishing Ring to suppress him. Every time he chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra, the Diamond Devil Vanquishing Ring would display its power and suppress the violent aura in the Azura's heart, allowing him to return to calmness. However, there was a time limit to this. Once the time limit was over, the Azura would return to his original nature. However, Dizong of Goguryeo believed in the power of the Ksitigarbha Sutra and the Diamond Devil Vanquishing Ring. He believed that dripping water could penetrate stone. After temporarily suppressing the Azura, Dizong of Goguryeo turned to look at Tang Zhong. He discovered that the black hole in the air had disappeared at some point. Everything had returned to normal. A strange look appeared in Dizong of Goguryeo's eyes. It was not because of the black hole that had disappeared, but because of Tang Zhang's cultivation. His cultivation had actually advanced by leaps and bounds. With Dizong of Goguryeo's strength, it was not difficult for him to discern Tang Zhang's cultivation. Originally, he was only at the first rank of the Yuanying realm, but now he had advanced to the fourth rank of the Yuanying realm. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation had advanced by 3 ranks. This speed was simply terrifying. It was not inferior to Dizong of Goguryeo's instant ascension. Dizong of Goguryeo's heart skipped a beat. He immediately recalled the scene from before. Tang Zhang had used some unknown method to absorb the power of the Lord of the Underworld. Furthermore, he had been demoted to the 8th rank of the Divine Transformation Realm. Although he had only been demoted from the 9th rank of the Divine Transformation Realm to the 8th rank of the Divine Transformation Realm, the difference of 1 rank was already shocking enough. Therefore, it seemed reasonable that Tang Zhang had absorbed so much power and advanced by 3 ranks. In the end, this kind of shortcut is not very beneficial to cultivation. I still have to advise him to take it one step at a time, steadily and surely. This is the correct path of cultivation. Dizong of Goguryu's fiery golden eyes were not fooled by the alluring appearance of the sky swallowing technique. Instead, he was able to see the drawbacks of it at a glance. However, this is also his opportunity. Others would not be able to obtain this kind of opportunity, even if they wanted to. It's just that it's better to use this method less often. Dizong of Goguryo was not a stubborn person. He did not completely reject the sky swallowing technique. Dizong of Goguryo looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. He saw that Tang Zheng's eyes were tightly shut. It was obvious that he had yet to recover from his cultivation advancement. Dizong of Goguryo did not disturb him. He only quietly watched as a spectator. Suddenly, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.